listening to Character Crusade.
Welcome, everybody, to Character Crusade Podcast. I am sincerely hoping that I don't sound like a chipmunk right now.
I kind of like the chipmunk.
Let's get some confirmation.
You sound fine to me.
Okay. Can we hear it ourselves here?
Just a minute.
At the risk of a tad bit of feedback, we're going to double check.
Let me.
No, it sounds perfect. Sounds perfect. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Character Crusade Podcast. This is a product of CharacterCrusade.com. We appreciate you attending our last live stream podcast of 2016. Woohoo!
Last one. Made it through the year.
What the hell?
Sweet.
So, as you can see, Matt is not with us tonight. There was a little bit of shifting around. We were originally scheduled to do this stream last night, but we had to change things up a couple of different times. Matt is at a death in the family that's taking him away from us tonight. He'll be sorely missed, but we wish him all the best for his family and
a safe return.
And a safe return to us here in 2017. So, hey, Joe, how are you?
No complaints, Stu.
Joe has no complaints.
Well, not anymore. I had a few this afternoon, but
earlier today.
That's a whole different thing.
The regular job seems to generate complaints. Is that it?
Complaints and yeah. It was one of them days.
Right.
Yesterday and Friday and anyway.
Well, yeah.
Anyway.
You
How
know,
about you?
That's all over now.
But it is over, and I'm here, and
yeah,
all is good.
Well, yes, we are coming up, of course, on the holiday season, and I've been putting in a lot of hours, just between the jobs and other various things going on in life. So after this podcast is over, we'll be taking a little break and coming back in January and coming back strong. I think we've got a really kind of fun lineup of things coming up in the next year. We're very excited about that. And honestly, at that point, we're going to be very close to the 2-year anniversary of this podcast.
Nice.
And I'm thinking now is the time for us to start thinking about what we want to do that's different or special on the 2-year anniversary of Character Crusade Podcast. So if you guys have any ideas, feel free to float them. You can send them to our submission form on the website. As always, the best way to get a hold of us is through that submission form. If you have questions, comments, feedback, anything like that, feel free to submit it there.
Yep.
Okay, so on the agenda tonight, this is a very experimental segment that we're doing, and we're calling it the Lore Rabbit Hole. And this is kind of a test that Joe and I are doing to see if this format, if this kind of a segment is going to work well. And if it does, we'll probably carry it over fairly extensively into the next year. Basically, what we're doing is we've had these conversations about, we've done some recurring segments like Quest Connector.
Right.
We tried a segment once on archetypes, which we did one, and we were kind of lukewarm on it. We've done some other ones, but they seem to be one-off topics. And we were talking about this idea of, is there a way that we can, rather than every podcast trying to come up with a discrete topic to cover in that podcast and then worrying about retreading the same ground over and over again, frame up the things that we do in such a way that we keep things fresh, we cover a lot of material, and we kind of get back to the roots of what Character Crusade is all about. And we discussed this idea that we're calling the lore rabbit hole. And essentially, we have all poured hundreds, if not thousands of hours into this game over the last 5 years or so. And even then, there's tons and tons of stuff that we don't know about this lore. The lore that goes into this game is extremely deep, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
Yeah. Joe's getting into it big time right now.
I know a lot less than I know.
Yeah. So we thought, what if we were to frame up at least some of our episodes in lore? So rather than having a episode called Quest Connector, for example, or having one where we do the random thing with dice, where we, do the story cubes and stuff like that, what if we framed everything up in lore and we picked a topic from lore, something that is not well covered, and really dive into it, but then use some of the things that we've done in the past around these other kinds of segments that we do here at Character Crusade Podcast as a way to kind of enhance the discussion around a particular piece of lore. So in the end, we all learn something from it. And we can also talk, besides just talking about the lore, we're going to talk about how that lore could be incorporated into a playthrough.
Sure.
Or how it may apply to two quests that you want to merge together, or how it may apply to a character concept or background you've been thinking about. So in other words, using all the stuff we've done in previous segments as tools that we can apply to this idea of a particular facet of lore. So we talked about this and thought, what the hell,
Let's give it a shot.
We're going to use you all as our guinea pigs. And what we're looking for is, I think, topics in lore that it's not that they aren't well covered, but maybe they're a little bit more obscure.
Yeah, not as well trodden or a little more ambiguous.
Right. And we're going to be making heavy use of online resources. So we're going to be taking our information straight from the wikis and from places like the Imperial Library, from in-game books, anything that might be related to the topic. Now, some of the lore may be canon, some of it may not. It may spark discussions about how we fill in the blanks with a particular bit of lore so that we can use it for our own purposes. We're not necessarily concerned about lore friendliness in terms of, is this piece of lore canon or not? We're interested in how it's presented online, how we can use it, what the story is about, what the resources are about. So if there's something in the conversation that piques your interest and you think might apply to a project you're working on, you can take that nugget of information and run with it. So
just basically explore it.
Yep.
Because as we've mentioned, we are definitely not
lore wonks.
Lore wonks is a good way to put it.
Yes, we're not lore wonks.
We're not the experts, but we play some on TV. No, we don't.
We play them on the internet. No. So that's kind of the concept.
But yeah, it's just a fun little format to explore something that I think everyone has got at least some interest in one way or another.
Yeah. So we've had this conversation, and thought, okay, what is a lore topic that would be too large versus what is a lore topic that might be too small? Where's the sweet spot? In other words, for a topic we might want to cover here, and how do we kind of identify what that is going forward, so that consistently when we pick lore topics, we can pick topics that can be framed up nicely in this format, this podcast format. So in talking about that, we had talked about the idea of using certain personalities, individuals from Elder Scrolls lore to focus on, and then and we call it rabbit hole because by following the wikis, you know how it is when you get on the wiki and you look something up, pretty soon you're 5 pages deep.
Yep, there's a link. And
there's a link and you follow it and you keep going. That's what we want to do here, and we're going to do it somewhat spontaneously. So Joe and Matt and I are going to pick a topic. We're going to do some kind of high-level research so that we kind of understand what the basic concept is. But then right in the podcast, live in the podcast, we're going to dive deeper. We're going to ask questions of each other, and we're going to be actually exploring the wiki as we talk. And we're going to be repeating back to you information from the wiki that we think is relevant. And then when we do our show notes, Joe will be adding into the show notes links back to the wiki for anything that we were discussing, things like that.
Yeah, we'll put our sources in. I mean, it's kind of, I think we're going to try to stick to, the mainstays. UESP, well, the ones you've already mentioned, really.
Yeah,
so.
Probably the Elder Scrolls wiki and the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages will be the two wikis that we focus on.
Yeah, those will be the main.
Yep, and then we can go to Imperial Library for any in-game books or things like that might apply to the topic.
Some supplemental,
yes,
whatever.
That is the concept in a nutshell, and that is what we are going to be talking about tonight. Our first segment of the lore rabbit hole is going to be focused on Miraak, but more specifically, the relationship between Miraak and another dragon priest called Vahlok. We're all pretty familiar with Miraak because of his role in the Dragonborn DLC.
And smooth, savory voice.
Oh my God. Best voice in the game. And there's some good ones.
There are a couple. There are a couple good
very
ones,
good
yes,
ones.
But he definitely has the command
for sure. But we're gonna be focusing on another aspect of the whole Miraak question, and that is kind of his arch nemesis, at least at the end of his life, Vahlok, and what happened between them, and kind of exploring that a little bit and talking a little bit about the implications of that, and probably sharing some opinions also about the lore and how we think it might be relevant to the game experience, things like that. But before we do that, we've got a couple other things that we want to cover. One is that we wanted to kick this off because Matt is not with us tonight. He left us a message, a recorded message. This is for you guys. It's his way of kind of wishing us a good podcast, even though he can't be here tonight. So we're going to take a look at that. Hopefully you can hear it. His voice is recorded here, and I'm hoping it comes through. So let us know if you can't hear it, and we'll replay it if necessary.
Hello, Crusaders, and welcome to Character Crusade. This is Matt. Nope, I won't be joining you this evening. Of course, I'm on the road again and missing another fabulous podcast. I'm sure that Joe and Stu they'll keep you good company, and they'll give you a great wrap-up of everything that we've done in 2016. I know that we've got a fantastic 2017 coming up as well. We've got so much great stuff still to share with you, and we're really glad that we've got so many people with us on the podcast, on the live stream, joining us on Patreon. Wow, you guys are just amazing. I just wanted to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to everybody who's joined us this year and in 2015. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys in 2017. Hope you have a great and happy new year.
All right, a little message from Matt.
It's It's kind of like the Grammy Awards.
It kind of is. Yeah.
Can't be here, but
yeah.
Here's my taped message for you.
Yeah, he's the Invalid Award winner this year. Who he's bedridden and he can't accept his award in person, or he's on set in New Zealand.
I think that would probably be more.
He would like that more.
Yeah, I think he would prefer that angle.
Right. He's got the starring role as an ogre in an upcoming fantasy film. So
I thought maybe he might be, scoping out potential prospects at the Weta Workshop or something.
That could be too. I don't know. Okay, so a little bit of a tour update. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the last night of the virtually immersive Skyrim Tour 2016, overpowered, lore-friendly, and mostly immersive. We just wanted to say a big thank you to everybody for being so supportive. We hit a lot of locations, and it's amazing. We only had to cancel one night, but we replaced that with, I think what was, everyone would agree, was a really stellar panel discussion with some great guests. So overall, I think it was a huge success, and I want to thank you all for supporting us, supporting this crazy-ass thing that we've decided to do, the whole green screen thing and stuff. I mean, we really tried to pull out all the stops, and kind of do it in an interesting way so we could have more than just a Skyrim discussion, but we could have some fun at it as well, and entice you to keep coming back for live streams because it is really fun to do. It's a lot of work, but it's totally worth it. So we're going to continue the green screen thing in 2017. We'll only be doing it once a month instead of twice a month. The podcast will continue to be twice a month, but the green screen live stream will only be once a month. So anyway, big thanks. So tonight, of course, we're at the Retching Netch. This is the last stop on our tour. In the way of thank yous, we also wanted to thank our Patreon subscribers. The month of November was an incredible month for Character Crusade podcast on Patreon. We had a huge show of support on Patreon by our standards, right? We're not podcasters who are, making $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 in recurring donations on Patreon. But we certainly do appreciate every penny that we get from you guys. I feel like we have a small audience, but the audience that we have is really engaged and really high quality, and I would never trade that for anything. So here is a list of all the people who are currently supporting us on Patreon at $1 or more. And there's a good number of folks on this list, 6 or 7, who joined us just in November alone. So much appreciation for that, and so happy that you guys found the podcast. That is the biggest deal for us, is just bringing in people who are like-minded and all that. So definitely appreciate it. I think Patreon is probably another one of those areas, too, where we're going to be looking at how to change up our Patreon program in 2017. We had, toward the latter half of 2016, kind of started down this path of creating some custom mods and stuff like that as gifts for our Patreon subscribers. That has all been thrown into a little bit disarray with the launch of SE. Not all of our tools are up to snuff quite yet. Not all of our mods have been converted. And honestly, in order to do our respective YouTube channels and do the live stream and manage the podcast and the website and all this stuff, we've come to realize that we need to do something for our Patreon subscribers that is within our capacity to actually accomplish with the time we have. So we're going to be giving that some thought. If you got some ideas for things that you think would be good for our Patreon subscriber program, let us know. We're open to ideas and all of that stuff. So always looking for good feedback on that. So that'll come up in 2017. We're going to put some more thought into that. So there's plenty of time to let us know if you've got ideas or whatnot. That brings us to our main segment, ladies and gentlemen. So it's time to go down the lore rabbit hole. And just so you're aware, because it's just Joe and I at the Retching Netch tonight, and we're down a man. We're probably not going to be monitoring chat during our discussion, but after the discussion is over and the podcast proper is complete, we're going to take a little break, and then we'll come back for chat, and we'll just kind of hang out for however long you guys want to hang out and chit-chat or whatever.
Hang out for the aftercast.
Yeah, the aftercast. Ooh, I love that.
There you go.
The aftercast.
We need a slide for that.
We do. Okay. Next podcast, I'm making one. So let's talk a little bit about this. Joe and I were trying to come up with, we were thinking about that question we'd talked about earlier of scale. What's the right scale of subject matter for this? We've got basically an hour to talk about what this is, or less in some cases, depending on what else is going on. And we also have limited amounts of time to do research outside of the podcast, but we felt like it was within our capacity to do some research on the wiki and then draw from our own knowledge of the game every couple of weeks and come up with something that's pretty good. And so for starters, we thought, since we're at the Retching Netch, it should be something in Solstheim, right? I mean, that seemed
applicable.
Logical. So for our first experiment, we decided to try Miraak as a topic. And I think we've all probably looked up some information on Miraak, or, had the in-game experiences. Mm-hmm. Unless you're paying really, really close attention to the in-game dialogue and all the stuff that are going on outside of your direct interactions with Miraak, there's probably a lot of nuance that you miss out on where Miraak's concerned. And I found that even though I had played through Miraak's part of the DLC storyline 2 or 3 times, going back and looking at the lore surrounding this particular character, I learned all kinds of stuff I really had no idea.
Interesting.
Yeah, really interesting. So what I'm always amazed at, too, is when I go down this wiki rabbit hole, the ties that I find between the game I know and love, Skyrim, and previous versions of this game.
Yeah, they're pretty intertwined.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing, actually. So we're going to talk a little bit about Miraak. So I'm going to start out by just reading a little bit of introductory information so that we're all on the same page about who this guy is. Most of us have experienced him in game, and we recognize him as a big bad guy. But beyond that, what do we know about Miraak? Okay, Miraak is... his name means Allegion's Guide in the dragon language. It's originally... He was originally a dragon priest in the Merithic era, and this is the era when the dragon priests were kind of at their peak. Mm-hmm. I think, that isn't a big leap. We all kind of understand that because his mask is kind of lumped in with all the other dragon priest masks you can find, that he's a baddie where the dragon priests are concerned. But he is the first dragonborn, although that term would not come into use until after the time of Saint Alicia and the first dragonborn recorded in history. He ruled over the island of Solstheim, where a large temple was dedicated to him. So Joe and I have also discussed this concept of Saint Alicia. That's another one that we definitely want to cover.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, she's super
really
interesting.
Intriguing. Yeah. Now, this to me is the first instance I've found of inconsistency in the legend of Miraak was this idea that he ruled over the island of Solstheim, where a large temple was dedicated to him. It doesn't really put a particular timestamp on that, but if you read further into the legend of Miraak, the history, whether it actually happened or whether it's just part of legend or lore, the lore states that the island of Solstheim was actually created in the aftermath, I guess, of a battle
Right.
between Miraak and Vahlok, who is the other character.
So it'd be kind of like
story.
all the lakes here in Minnesota were created by the
Yes.
fight between Babe and
Yes.
Paul Bunyan. So.
Between Paul Bunyan and
So
Babe
it's
the
very
Vahlok.
very similar to
Yes.
local lore.
Yes, and that's absolutely true.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yes.
You think it's not?
I don't think that. I
So-
would never think that.
There's actually I think Ted had a good question here pertaining to this topic. Would Waja know Miraak?
Yes. Actually,
So
Roger does know Miraak.
is he going to try to get that mask too, or is that not one of his?
That's what, I would think so. I would think that Miraak's mask is probably like the holy grail of masks for Roger.
Knock, knock.
Knock, knock, Miraak. I coming. Yeah, I mean that he probably spent a lot of time on that mask making it. So, excuse me, my ear itches. Oh. Yeah, for those of you who haven't delved deeply into Roger lore, because there is none.
Well, indirectly, I guess, by association.
Yes. Yeah, I've talked a little bit about Roger lore, but haven't really documented anything. Except a
Roger
list. A very sophisticated list of masks which he is pursuing. Yes, Roger is from the Merithic era. In fact, he was fresh off the boat from Atmora.
That's right. That's right.
Right? He was a fresh-faced young man.
And swindled out of his
Yes.
masks.
And he was an artisan. He specialized in making these beautiful masks, and he planned to sail from Atmora to Skyrim and set up a new life for himself, build a studio, sell his masks, and make some money at it.
Would he be kind of like a Khajiit, maybe? Would he set up like a little booth? Would he go from town to town, kind of like, festivals?
Possibly, yeah. Yeah,
Selling
actually,
his
yeah.
wares?
Yeah, I could see him going to, art festivals.
They wouldn't really be Ren Fests, I guess, but
Yeah, sitting on a stump.
they'd just be
whittling.
fests.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see him doing that. So he has this inventory of masks that he's created that he's very proud of that are made out of different materials. And when he lands in Skyrim, he is immediately swindled out of those masks by a group of sort of hoity-toity, up-and-coming Nord priests. All right? And during that process, they steal his masks, and he is trapped inside of a barrow and inadvertently becomes a draugr, but not a draugr in the traditional sense. He's actually
Somewhat cognizant?
yeah, he doesn't sleep. He's just trapped, right? So he spends several thousand years roaming around the underground barrows and stewing over the fact
Well, I
that
believe
these
he
guys
was
stole his
trapped
masks.
for quite some time.
Yes.
So he
Yes.
didn't really have much of a. He just.
Mm-hmm.
What was he doing? Was he reading or?
Oh, well, he was probably reading. He was probably, I mean, imagine his digits weren't quite as capable of creating art.
I suppose they
but,
lost some of their luster over the years.
yeah, but I think he spent most of his time being angry,
It seems like
Yeah.
he really got himself worked up. Yeah.
Yeah. In the meantime, these people who stole the masks from him, they're out in the real world, and they're becoming important, and they're becoming powerful, and then they all become dragon priests, and they turn his masks into these mythic items of power that we see in game now. And when he is finally able to escape from the barrow, several thousand years later, he's bent on getting his masks back and a little revenge in the process. So, how does that relate to Miraak? Well, I'm sure that Miraak's mask is among those and probably the most prized. But he hasn't made it to Solstheim yet. In fact, he might be a little bit afraid of getting on a boat and sailing anywhere now, given what happened to him last time he went on a trip. So,
If a draugr falls in the water, do they just kind of dissolve?
no, I think they stay in one piece. I just think they walk along the bottom to
Oh,
wherever
okay.
they're going. I don't think
I
they're
wasn't sure if
buoyant.
they're so brittle that they might just like an Alka-Seltzer just kind of
Just dissolve.
just dissolve.
That could be. You never know.
So we've got Miraak, and so what was the battle again that separated
Mm-hmm.
the province of Morrowind from the main land of Tamriel?
That I don't know.
Okay.
The way that the legends say it is that when Miraak vanishes from the world, it's when he loses a battle with another dragon priest called Vahlok.
Ah, that's right.
Okay, and according to the lore, so much power was unleashed during their battle that it actually split Solstheim from the Skyrim mainland. So according to the lore, Solstheim was actually part of Skyrim, but it was split apart and away from Skyrim as a result of this battle, is what the lore reads. But, who knows if that's true or not. I mean, it depends on how you're playing your game and whether or not these characters are playing a role
Right.
in what you're doing or not.
I mean, Athena was born from Zeus's head, too. So, I mean, I guess read into it what you want.
That's the truth. God's honest truth.
Gods.
So let's
Small G and an S.
Let's learn a little bit more about his status. So he served as the leader of the dragon cult and possessed a dragon priest mask called Miraak, given to him by the dragons. At some point, he sought out the teachings of Hermaeus Mora, the demon of knowledge, and became his champion. Hermaeus Mora taught Miraak the power to bend the will of dragons. Using this knowledge and his innate ability to devour the souls of dragonkind, he turned on his winged overlords and killed a great number of them. Okay, so now we get into 3 other dragon priests. Azadal.
Okay. Well, that was interesting.
Was that Siri?
Yeah, Siri decided to tell us a little bit about Miraak and the Demon of Power. And
Thank you, Siri.
yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That was
Siri
odd.
is a new guest on the show.
Yeah.
So, essentially, when you think about it, right? I mean, you could probably consider that most of the dragon priests probably knew how to use the Thu'um. No, they didn't. They didn't, right? The Thu'um is something that was taught to man to fight
To fight the dragons.
the dragons.
Right.
So the dragon priests didn't have the Thu'um.
Right, and that would bring Saint Elysia into it if you kind of want to take that little roundabout turn.
Mm-hmm. So I think what makes Miraak the badass that he is, and what gives him power over the other dragon priests, is his ability to absorb dragon souls and obviously use the Thu'um.
Right.
It's not clear to me whether or not
how he came to possess it.
Yeah, it's not clear to me. Obviously, when we as characters are battling against him in the Skyrim stories, he's using shouts. He's using shouts on us, and the lore sort of implies that he's using shouts at this time as well. He's absorbing dragon souls, and he's using this bend will thing, right, to control the dragons, and then this allows him to just willy-nilly kill dragons and absorb their power basically at will. He becomes kind of the ultimate dragon slayer, which I think is kind of interesting. It's just not clear to me based on this lore how that works. If his ability to absorb a dragon soul is separate from his ability to use the voice.
Oh,
so, right. I don't really know. So that's a good question.
Yeah, it doesn't really go into what came first, if you will.
Yeah. So if we look at this again, it just says Hermaeus Mora taught Miraak the power to bend the will of dragons. Okay, so to me that sounds like he had some kind of an innate dragonborn ability to absorb dragon souls, but it was Hermaeus Mora who taught him
how to use it.
How to use a shout, specifically the bend will shout. Now, who knows, after thousands of years living in Apocrypha, he probably learned other shouts as well. So when we encounter him, he's maybe using more than just bend will.
Right.
I don't know. It's been a while since I actually duked it out with him. So I don't remember.
Yeah, he uses a couple different ones.
Does he?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
I can't remember specifically what his
Right.
repertoire is, but
So yeah, he's kind of a interesting character in that when we look at Miraak, I'm struck by the fact that there seems to be an even greater separation between the idea of absorbing a soul and using a shout. I think in Skyrim, in that game, we sort of think that these two things are tied together hand in hand, when in fact they're kind of two separate things that happen to work together.
well, yeah, and really, you can absorb all these, like the dragon walls and all that. I mean, you can absorb those without having the dragon souls to spend on them.
That's true. And when you think about it, the encounter that you have with the Greybeards, that's all about teaching you how to
use the
make the
thum.
connection between
Right.
a dragon soul and learning what the words mean, right? So I don't know. That's interesting. That's just my take on it. I think there's probably several different ways a person could interpret this.
Right.
But I think one of the interesting things here is the three dragon priests that we see represented, well, three of the dragon priests we see represented on Solstheim, Azadal, Dukan, and Zakrisos. Those are all dragon priests who actually joined Miraak, and they became three of his most powerful servants, and they're called the Acolyte Priests. Following this, dragons raised his temple in retaliation. So Miraak is basically leader of the dragon priests, and at some point he becomes, I would say, arrogant or confident to the point.
I think that's a kind way to put it.
Yeah, confident, like to the point where he feels like, you know what, I don't need to worship dragons because, frankly, I'm more powerful than dragons.
Right.
And so he demonstrates that power on a regular basis by destroying dragons and absorbing their power as kind of a proof of his own superiority, yeah, which is kind of interesting. And so you've got these three other dragon priests who see that going on and like, oh, I'm with him, that kind of thing.
Right.
So now we have kind of a splinter group going on. Okay, so
I kind of like the title, The Demon of Knowledge. I don't know why, but
yeah, I know. I kind of
like
like that too.
that phrase.
We had a conversation in, I think it was a discussion thread around an episode of Corvalane's story.
Okay.
Because she's called the Demon Hunter, there was this discussion about, well, what constitutes a demon in Skyrim? And part of it was, well, she's called a Demon Hunter because she's based on a character a character concept that was a Demon Hunter in another game.
Right.
But I mean, if we look at the lore, this probably isn't the last time that we see a Daedric prince referred to as a demon.
Right.
So I guess in that sense, Corvalane could be considered a Daedra hunter, maybe in this concept,
Sure.
as opposed to in Diablo, where
It's
maybe you're
literally
actual demons.
More literal demon.
Yeah. So it wasn't until I read this lore that I had seen a reference made to actual demon.
Knowledge.
But,
I don't know. I just kind of like the phrase.
Me too. Okay, so we've got this faction kind of warfare going on now. And, okay, so now it moves on to talk about the Dragon War and Hakon One-Eye. So Hakon One-Eye, if I remember correctly, he is one of the Nord warriors of legend who fought in the Dragon Wars, and you can actually encounter him in Solstheim, and he's one of the individuals you see during the Dragon Break also, but this is a character who will help you defeat Alduin.
Right. So, Nord hero and tongue in the Merethic era. So,
Okay.
yes.
That makes sense.
And you do see him in Sovngarde.
Okay, so you see him in Sovngarde. So it says, during the Dragon War, Hakon One-Eye and others sought him out, him being Miraak, desperate for a strong ally in their fight against Alduin. Miraak, though apparently confident that he could defeat Alduin if he so chose, refused to help, leaving mankind to their own fate. So basically, they approach Miraak and say, hey, we know that you have this power over dragons. Now we're facing the ultimate dragon, which is Alduin. Will you help us? It doesn't really explain why Miraak said no, but they make it pretty clear in the lore that he was absolutely confident that he could defeat Alduin by himself with no problem. So, and for some reason he said no, but they don't really explain what that is. And I can't remember if that comes up in game or not. I don't recall.
It doesn't sound familiar.
Yeah.
But it's not to say it doesn't.
Yeah. But, I think that's what makes Miraak, I think, one of my favorite bad guys is when you look at that character, especially digging into the lore here, and see these kind of, you see the nuance here, right? You see Miraak as a potentially very complicated and flawed individual, right? And I think Miraak's biggest problem is his pride, his arrogance. I mean, that seems to be what bites him in the ass in the end, is having such a high regard for himself and his own power that he can't conceive of anybody defeating him.
Right.
And then that ends up being his downfall in a way.
True.
Because when you think about it, as a character, your experience with Miraak is that he keeps coming in and stealing dragon souls from you and doing. He's not only is he's sort of taking a risk by doing that to you.
Well, then he taunts you.
But then he taunts you. He's trying to goad you into coming after him.
Right.
So I think that's really kind of interesting. It's a good, I think, proof of his absolute arrogance. So I thought that was cool.
It just pisses you off.
Okay, so now we get into a little bit of a mention about the skull. And I think that the skull is another one that we would love to cover in depth at some point.
Right.
But they always get a mention in Miraak's story because they're kind of tied together.
Right.
Skull legend remembers Miraak as, quote-unquote, the traitor, and recounts how he plotted against the dragons with Hermaeus Mora. Another dragon priest, Vahlok, the jailer, also known as the guardian to the native skull, uncovered this deception, and the two engage in a duel so vicious and destructive that the modern island of Solstheim was ripped from the land of Skyrim. Vahlok defeated Miraak, but just as he prepared to deliver the killing blow, Hermaeus Mora snatched Miraak away and saved his champion. So everything,
that's interesting.
Yeah, everything I just read there comes from UESP. So that's coming from the unofficial Elder Scrolls pages. And that site doesn't have a lot more to say about Vahlok linked from that particular entry. So I was really interested in finding out more about who Vahlok was. And there isn't a whole lot about this person. But to me, it's really intriguing, this idea that we've got a dragon priest who goes after Miraak and defeats him. I was really curious. I mean, what was it about Vahlok that made him able to defeat this individual in Miraak, who's so powerful, right?
Right.
I don't get the sense from reading that Vahlok was any different than any of the other dragon priests. Maybe it is that he's smarter. I don't know. Or maybe he preyed on Miraak's arrogance in the same way that we do as the Dragonborn when we confront him on his own turf. Where he's gotten the leg up on us so many times, but eventually the player is able to kind of strike a backroom deal with the demon of knowledge
Right.
to basically blackball Miraak, right?
Oops. Sorry.
So that puts you on a path, right, to becoming not only defeating Miraak, but becoming the new champion of Hermaeus Mora, should you choose to do that. So that took me over to the Elder Scrolls Wiki, and I was just kind of digging around a little bit to see if I could find some more information on this particular character. So let's take a look at this. Okay, during the period of time when dragons ruled over mortals, Miraak served as a dragon priest on the island of Solstheim. Here we see it again, island of Solstheim, referred to prior to the battle taking place.
Right.
So that makes me wonder, was it an island off the coast of Skyrim, and then somehow during this battle it got drug further out to sea, or is it just a euphemism for something else? I don't really know, and they don't explain it. So I guess you could be literal about that if you wanted to or not, but I know my character's pretty freaking powerful, and I haven't moved any islands yet, so I don't know.
Well, you got to give it time.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Give it time.
I haven't hit level 81 yet.
I'm sure the reach will be separate pretty soon.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, there's already a nice valley there.
Right.
If I give it a good kick, it'll just crack off and
moving mountains.
Yeah, there we go.
Moving mountains.
it's the way to do it.
Hammerfell and the reach, they'll all just separate from the mainland.
Okay.
It'll be Hammer Reach.
Okay, he came into possession of a black book, which in turn led him to servitude under Hermaeus Mora, the Daedric Prince of Knowledge and Fate, who taught him a means to great power, a dragon shout capable of bending dragons to his will. With this forbidden knowledge in his possession, Miraak turned on his dragon masters, used it and his power as Dragonborn to devour their souls, to become ever more powerful. During the Dragon War, the ancient Nord heroes Hakon One-Eye, Gormalaith, Golden Hilt, and Feldir the Old had pleaded for Miraak to use his power as Dragonborn to assist them in defeating Alduin. However, Miraak refused to do so and instead attempted his own rebellion against the dragons. Because of his betrayal, the dragons razed his temple on Solstheim. So this is telling us basically the same story, but the wording is just a little bit different. It's, I would say, a little bit more specific, actually.
Mm-hmm.
In this particular instance, too, they're specifically citing a black book as being sort of the trigger point that creates the beginnings of this encounter or relationship between Miraak and Hermaeus Mora, which I think is kind of an interesting detail. It gives you a sense for how old the books are, how powerful the books are.
Yeah, no kidding.
But also gives you a sense for the fact that, okay, he may be very powerful, but he's not omnipotent. He used the same, it was the same kind of mechanical sort of process through the books that drug him into contact with Hermaeus Mora, the same way that we encounter it in many ways. So it has a sense of, for me anyway, kind of psychologically leveling the playing field a little bit. Because I think one of the impressions I always get with Miraak is he wants you to believe that he's omnipotent. He wants you to believe that he's all-powerful and cannot be defeated, and he's got all this inside knowledge and stuff. And to an extent, he does.
He does, and he puts on a good show. He's a showman.
Yeah, he does. But when you boil it right down, he's not that much more powerful than the Dragonborn at full capacity, when you think about it. So I would say probably both of the times that I've faced Miraak, it's been with different types of characters, but both times it was around level 50, and I didn't have too much trouble.
I mean, it could be a challenge, but it's certainly doable.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, you have to wonder that maybe that much time stuck in Apocrypha and separated from the real world has kind of skewed his perception.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Hermaeus Mora could even been feeding into that.
Yeah. And again, here, this explains a little bit more subtly why he may have refused to help with Alduin, because it specifically says he refused to do so and instead attempted his own rebellion against the dragons. So it's possible that in his mind he's thinking, no, I'm not going to help you because I'm actually busy. I'm busy with my own rebellion, and by the way, as long as you keep fighting with Alduin, he's not going to be paying attention to me over here, and I'm going to do my thing, right?
Almost too convenient.
Yeah. You can almost envision a situation where
you keep the most powerful and busy, and I'll take over the rest.
Yeah, and he's saying to himself,
the iron's hot.
Yeah, I'll gut Alduin's army, and when the time comes, I'll defeat Alduin and take his place as the world eater in a way, right? As the ultimate power.
Sure.
That sounds about right for Miraak to me. So
I could see that in his storyline.
Yep.
Sure.
Yep. So let's see. So he refuses, and he's going to and he's attempting his own rebellion against the dragons, and because of the betrayal, they raise his temple on Solstheim. So the dragons attack and destroy his temple. They don't attack and destroy Miraak. They destroy his temple,
right?
And presumably some of his followers and things like that. I suppose.
Likely.
So okay, it goes on to say his rebellion was unsuccessful, and he was defeated by another dragon priest named Vahlok, who was then made his jailer, restraining him to Solstheim. Other accounts mention that just as Vahlok was about to kill Miraak, Hermaeus Mora saved him by transporting him to the realm of Apocrypha. The dragons then appointed Vahlok as ruler of the island, but not before he was compelled to swear an oath of vigilance to watch over Miraak's return, earning him the title the Jailer.
Now, he doesn't actually have a mask either.
He doesn't.
Which is interesting.
Yes, he doesn't have a mask. And so, yeah, when I was digging into this is one of the areas where I start to form some of my own opinions about whether I like, I guess, how Vahlok is portrayed. I love the idea of Vahlok. I love the legend of Vahlok, but the way that Vahlok is presented in the game of Skyrim, in the Dragonborn DLC, I feel like is a bit of a wasted opportunity in a way, because you actually have an opportunity. There's a quest in that DLC that allows you to accompany, I think he's an Imperial researcher, and you can go to Vahlok's tomb, and you can actually explore his tomb, and that adventure will culminate, if you want it to, it will culminate in a battle with Vahlok. And Vahlok does not yield a mask, and he fights you, in a similar fashion to how dragon priests typically would. I think there are some specific challenges to, his Nordic ruin that make him a bit more challenging to fight. But, I guess the main issue that I have with that is that it's the quest in question is called Lost Legacy, and it's a journey or an adventure into Vahlok's tomb, and it's the guy that you go there with. He's a researcher. You find him in the Skull Village, and he'll ask you to accompany him, and you can go there and defeat this dragon priest Vahlok. But I guess the reason I think it's kind of a lost opportunity is you've got this mythic character who, according to lore, Miraak is defeated, and he's gone. He's no longer, he's on a different plane of existence, right? We know that he's an Apocrypha, so he's no longer a factor. And shortly after that, the Dragon War culminates in Alduin being launched forward in time, right? Mm-hmm. So now you've got this period where there are still dragons around, and there's still dragon priests around, but there's no Miraak and there's no Alduin. And according to the lore, this guy Vahlok was beloved by the people. He was seen as a hero. He was seen as one of only 2 dragon priests in lore who are considered to ever have had a reputation for being benevolent. The other one being Otar, who was considered to be a benevolent ruler as well until he went crazy.
Yeah, so actually the word wall, according to the Elder Scrolls here, it translates into noble Nord forever remembered, mighty Vahlok, whose great courage inspired both men and dragon.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? So at the close, you have the dragons who basically say to Vahlok, okay, you defeated Miraak, thank you very much. Now it's your responsibility to keep a watchful eye out and make sure he doesn't come back.
Right.
And then you have the people, including the Skull, who are, Nords, who revere Vahlok, right? And he's considered this benevolent ruler, and according to the lore, he presides over a long period of peace and prosperity.
So it kind of makes you wonder what happened.
Yeah, it makes you wonder what happened, but it's also a very different story than you tend to hear most often about the dragon priests. I mean, most of the dragon priests were considered to be, vile and, very kind of brutal and dictatorial and, controlling and all these things, right? And he sort of comes off as being more of this kind, benevolent ruler in a peaceful kingdom kind of a thing, right? And so when you engage in this quest, it's kind of a bummer to me that idea doesn't come out through the narrative,
Agreed.
And yeah, I mean, to me, it seems like there's this missed opportunity to play with the lore a little bit and say, maybe this is the one dragon priest who doesn't give you a hard time. Maybe this is the one dragon priest that you learn something from, or that has some other kind of legacy other than brutality and just trying to kill you outright. Now, you could say that that's what the dragon priests do, because when you're encountering them, you're invading their barrows. But that seems, to me, that seems overly simplistic. I think it would be cool if you had a dragon priest who was different than the other ones. And based on what we see in the lore of this character's reputation, has a completely different interaction with the player character. And maybe you do get a mask from them.
Right.
But it's a mask that is bestowed rather than taken, or something interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's sort of, to me, it's a bit disappointing to go on a lengthy and frankly interesting journey through a barrow to encounter a dragon priest that's just like any other, except without even a mask.
Right.
It doesn't even yield a mask when you're done. So to me, that was a little bit disappointing. It was really cool, I think, to read the lore and discover who Vahlok was. I just wish that he had been leveraged a little bit more for the character he was in life in the story. So again, that quest, if you're interested in it, is called The Lost Legacy.
I'd actually be really interested to learn more about Otar's past too.
Yeah, Otar is maybe another character that we
could explore a little.
Bit. It might make a lot of sense now, since Roger is midway through confronting Otar at the moment.
Could be good timing.
Yeah. So he's got his eye on Otar's mask next. And Roger knows that Otar had a reputation for being mad or being crazy, because he's been poking fun at Otar about it already, So you crazy, that kind of thing.
And broke.
And being broke, yeah. He's making fun of Otar for having no money. But Roger's taking what little he has left. So, okay. So he's called Vahlok the Jailer. And that, I think that's a moniker that comes specifically from this idea that he's given this responsibility of making sure that Miraak doesn't come back. But the Skull also consider him, they call him Vahlok the Guardian, which is a little bit different. So, okay. So if we look a little bit more at Vahlok, and like I said, I mean, I haven't done exhaustive research here, but most of the information I found on Vahlok actually came from the Elder Scrolls wiki, not UASP.
Right.
Okay, so
Yeah, there's surprisingly little about this particular
yeah, and that's
character
where
on
kind of
the unofficial pages.
disappointed. And to be honest with you, when I was first reading through this, the encounter with Vahlok was so not memorable that I didn't even recall that there was a encounter with him or a quest that involved Vahlok, right? I think when I encountered him, I probably did the quest line and said, oh yeah, it's just another dragon priest, and went through and fought that dragon priest or whatever, not really understanding the lore behind it, got to the end and said, oh, what, this is a gyp, no mask? You know, like, and there's probably a lot of people who have that reaction, right? Because you're kind of expecting one thing, but
Right.
getting another. I think where Vahlok becomes interesting is when you understand the lore and then approach the quest,
Right.
having understood that.
There's actually a good point made here
Mm-hmm.
by Atticus that the Konarik mask is really kind of the opposite, where you get the mask, but there's no dragon priest attached to it,
That's true. That's true.
which is kind of funny.
That is kind of funny. Now, that one you get after you've collected all the other masks, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And you have to give up the other masks to get that one, don't you?
You have to place them on that, if I'm thinking of the bust inside,
Right.
where is that with the trolls?
Labyrinthian.
Yes. And then you also have to have that the wooden,
The wooden
mask.
one. The wooden one gets you there.
And then you can get this thing because it opens up, and
But
I
by,
think it just makes it accessible. I don't think you lose all the other ones.
no?
I don't think so. It's I haven't gone through that in a long time. I don't recall specifically, but
Yeah.
I don't think you do.
Yeah, I wouldn't know.
I think it just becomes accessible, but
Yeah, for some reason I thought that in order to get that one, you had to give up the other ones somehow. But I wouldn't know, because honestly, I've never actually collected all the dragon masks with a single character.
oh, here it is. So answer's right here. The other masks may be taken from the shrine once Konarik is obtained. So
Okay, so you can have Konarik and you can get the other
you can
masks
have your
as
cake
well.
and eat it too.
Ooh, I like that.
That's nice.
I like some cake.
Cake is good.
Yes.
Band or the edible?
I'll take the edible cake over
edible.
the band any day.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
for sure. Okay, so
Can't go the distance with that?
no, I can't. God, I wish I could remember all the lyrics. So
Yeah, let's not.
Miraak began to secretly plot against his dragon overlords. However, Vahlok discovered his plans and confronted Miraak, okay? So Vahlok is obviously still loyal to the dragons. He discovers the plot. He confronts Miraak and basically uncovers the plot. That's why he's, I think, eventually rewarded, I guess.
Yeah,
by
it's
the
such, it's
dragons?
such an interesting position, because he's rewarded by the skull for protecting them against Miraak, and rewarded by the dragons for
Yeah.
protecting them against Miraak.
Yeah. It says that for his victory, Vahlok gained much glory, and his dragon masters appointed him as ruler of the island, but not before he was compelled to swear an oath of vigilance to watch for Miraak's return. Other accounts report that Miraak was defeated and then banished to Solstein, where he was imprisoned in a tomb. We know that's not the case. Just because when we encounter him in game, it's obvious he's
Not entombed.
he's in Apocrypha and he's trying to come back. Right.
I mean, yeah, he might be trapped in Apocrypha, but
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, it says, in any case, Vahlok was instrumental in the downfall of Miraak and put a stop to whatever plans he might have had. I think what's interesting is to speculate on how Vahlok pulled that off. You know?
got himself in a pretty good spot.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't even have one of Waj's masks to help him.
I
and
know.
He did it.
I know.
Uh-huh.
That's pretty crazy.
Vahlok's legacy is a sharp contrast to his contemporaries on the mainland. Legend paints him as a paragon of loyalty and nobility in his battle against Miraak, and goes as far to say he inspired great courage in both men and dragons. His reign was said to be a time of peace and prosperity for the people of Solstheim, and, unlike the priests of Skyrim, he was remembered as a wise and just leader by the ancient Skal. So, when I read all of that, that definitely leads me to believe that this idea of the island of Solstheim being joined to the main part of the continent and basically cracking off and floating out to sea is bogus. It's not meant in literal terms.
I think it's, yeah. I think you could read that as being a method to maybe emphasize the hugeness.
Right. Yeah.
Of the battle, how intense it was.
Right.
Not necessarily literally
Yeah.
breaking land apart.
Yeah. Now, one of the interesting things about the quest Lost Legacy is when I was digging into that a little bit, it said that Vahlok's tomb is it's one of only 2 locations in the Skyrim game, including DLCs, where you find corrupt spirits.
Oh, yeah.
The other
That's a good
place
point. Is
being
Meridia's Temple.
Meridia's Temple, yeah. So, I mean, it's possible, too, that for lore's sake...
Who was voiced by Wonder Woman, by the way?
Meridia?
Yes.
Yeah. Good choice.
Linda Carter.
Linda Carter. One could say that, maybe there's some corrupt influence going on in Vahlok's tomb that causes him to be almost feral, and that's the reason you're fighting him, and that's the reason he's fighting you.
He's changed from his original.
He's been poisoned, or he's changed from his original state.
Right.
It's just, I don't know. The whole dragon priest thing bothers me just a little bit in that, I suppose we have these people who were in the Nords who were, intelligent, normal people who went through some terrible process and became these Draugr that were less than human, had some vestige of intelligence, but not the same kind of not the same kind of energetic brain activity that you have in a living person, right? I suppose you could argue that the same sort of atrophy happens to a dragon priest when they die, but it's to me it's always I've always kind of not liked the idea that these people who were intelligent people in life, smart and plotting and powerful and stuff like that, just come this kind of feral, mindless creature after death. I don't know. I think more could have been done with that to make it more interesting. So that rather than feeling like the dragon priest is an asset to say, oh, we've got a barrow, grab the dragon priest asset and drop it in the dungeon because that's what we got to do. Like, more could have been done.
And we'll just change up his spell abilities a bit.
Well, yeah.
Because that'll make him unique.
Yeah, when you think about it, the sole purpose, if the lore is to be believed, the sole purpose of the Draugr in a barrow is to
sustain the dragon priest.
Yeah, to sustain the dragon priest.
Right.
So you would think the dragon priest would come out of this with something more than standard Draugr intelligence, but the way that they act, in some ways, seems almost less intelligent than the Draugr that you encounter.
Yeah.
I mean, they're obviously very powerful, but I don't recall ever hearing a dragon priest say anything that sounded like language.
No, it's all just kind of hissing.
It's that high-pitched squeal, and then they're blasting you with fireballs and stuff like that. I know that there's supposed to be, the bad guy, the boss battle at the end of the dungeon and stuff like that, but I think more could have been done there.
Yeah, more interesting if they had been presented as a form, above or about their former selves.
Right, right.
Give them a little bit more individuality and character.
Yeah, I mean they're all, obviously there's stories behind all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And they have these distinct stories and distinct masks and all this kind of stuff. It just feels like more could have been done there, but what do I know? I'm still enjoying playing the game nonetheless. But Vahlok is one of those in particular that I think part of my annoyance with that just comes from this idea that here's a character who's super complex, right? He's a dragon priest who breaks the mold, and it would be so amazing to see what kind of conversation you could have with a character like that if you could talk to him in the same way that you could talk to Miraak.
Give him dialogue. That would have been super cool.
Yeah, there's
any of them.
Yeah, I know,
would have
right?
been interesting.
Oh,
I think,
yeah,
if you could interact,
crying out loud.
even if the end result is the same and they attack you nonetheless.
Yep. So let's see. If we go back to, I'm going to go back to UESP here, and we're going to take a look here.
Ted seems to think it's a lack of Draugr and their brain has atrophied.
That could be. That could be. You gotta keep those. You got to keep that gray matter moist.
You do. Moist is not something attributed to the Draugr that I've seen, but
no, not really.
And that could be why. I mean, if you look at all the vats and urns, there's no liquid in there.
Yeah.
I mean, there might be some ale, but I'm thinking someone brought that in afterwards.
What about Zakrisos? He bursts up out of the water and attacks you.
Oh, that's true.
But maybe he's in like some kind of a hermetically sealed chamber underneath.
Or enveloped in some kind of
magical
force.
Barrier.
Because he never goes back under once he comes up.
No, and if you swim down there, there's not like a sarcophagus underwater or anything like that.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Well, that blows that the hell out.
Well, I don't know. Zakrisos is the probably the first dragon priest that got a jump scare out of me.
Yeah, he comes out pretty quickly.
Yeah, because I remember going in there. I'm like, oh, I wonder if there's a dragon priest in here. No, don't see anything. Looks good. Think I'll search this chest. Poof, and there he's right there, and he's in your face,
hitting your ass with lightning.
Lightning, yeah, the lightning is his thing.
Oh my God,
that's the brutal.
And a lot of
it's brutal. Yeah.
It's almost it's not as bad as Patema.
Robotic Sausage is so confused, and I don't understand what Robotic Sausage is confused about.
The fact that we're,
that's what this is all about.
Rabbit hole.
This is the lore rabbit hole, and we've dove into the rabbit hole. So really, I think what we've done is we've kind of gotten to the point where the lore kind of stops.
Oh, I think I get it.
So.
Robotic Sausage is confused, I think, about the Draugr.
Oh, okay.
He's newer to the streams, so
okay. Well,
we'll probably have a Draugr break here shortly to help that.
Yes. Yeah, we're almost done with our little lore discussion here, and we can certainly have more discussion about this topic during what was it? Our post podcast. What do we call it?
That would be
postcast.
Aftercast.
Yeah, during the aftercast session, we can talk a little bit more about this lore or related lore,
or whatever.
Or Draugr specifically. What we have been doing is we've been crossing over, talking a little bit about lore that comes out of my head versus lore that's actually attributed to the game itself, which could be somewhat confusing. But Draugr is a sponsor of this podcast, so we have to talk about Draugr at some point. So yeah, that's kind of I guess for me the bite-sized lore that I wanted to talk about. And I find this pretty interesting. I think this is a kind of a fun format. So it might be kind of interesting to think about what we do with this now that we understand a little bit more about it. Because obviously Miraak is set up for us to be, an antagonist. We're supposed to not like Miraak. We're supposed to fight Miraak. We're supposed to defeat Miraak. But if the game is not providing us with anything interesting where Vahlok is concerned besides a dungeon crawl, are there ways that we could incorporate Vahlok
interesting.
into our own storytelling. And I would argue that there's probably a ton of different ways you could do that. I guess it depends on how industrious you want to be.
Right. I mean, it would probably most obviously or most easily be brought into, if you know, for a Nord type of character. Shoot, there could be even some background, you know, relations or bloodline. Say you could bring them into, you know, your character could be related to someone in the Skull, who in turn, you know, has a line lineage back to Vahlok, or
Yep.
you know, anything like that. So that would be an easier one.
That would be.
But it's such an interesting little backstory on this particular dragon priest.
Yeah, I think so too. It might be interesting, to say that, you know, maybe you have a Nord character who you're identifying as of Skull descent, you know, where Vahlok is considered to be the equivalent of a saint to these people, you know, right?
Right.
And you know, it's possible you could have a character that pays homage to Vahlok in the same way that someone would wear a pendant for their patron saint, right? And does things in that individual's name, or has some superstition attached to that, right? That would be a possibility. I was just hoping to actually look and see if it says anything about whether or not Vahlok possesses a staff or anything like that. If you gain any kind of a leveled magic item, if there's no mask, if there's something else that a person could count on. Because the other option would be that, since we understand that the dragon priest is essentially kind of like a feral creature, you're going to have to fight them no matter what. There is no intelligence there. So, you know, maybe Vahlok is a figure that, you know, is revered or has some spiritual significance, and your character at some point has to go on a spiritual mission to, I don't know, put down the restless soul of your patron saint, and you're doing it as a mercy.
Oh,
you know,
that's
or
a good spin.
Yeah, something like that. And then you're being gifted, well, by going through that, you're being gifted some pretty amazing words. One of the cool things about Vahlok is that is a word wall that gives you 3 words all at once, like Croesus does. So rather than getting just one word, you read that wall and get 3 words out of it. And maybe you find a special way to work those shouts into your fighting style, or use them in that way to sort of pay like homage to your patron saint, if you will.
Almost like a pilgrimage.
Yeah.
To obtain those.
So if I look down here, my system is slow because I'm streaming here.
What are you looking for?
Go to the bottom of the Lost Legacy under trivia and just see what's there. Sometimes there's interesting tidbits under trivia.
This one we already know. He's the notable dragon priest without a mask.
Yep.
He's also the only known dragon priest, with the possible exception of Otar before his madness, that was noted for being benevolent.
Okay,
we
got
know
that.
And his name in game is Vahlok the Jailer, not Jailer. So he's the Jailer. It's like a title.
The Jailer, not Jailor.
So,
okay.
Yeah, so it's like a title. It's not necessarily part of his name.
Right.
So nothing too terrible much to add from trivia on that. Kind of covered all those.
Yep. I think one of the things that is interesting about the character is that because there's so much ambiguity, and because we have 2 different names, and we have different people who view this character from history in different ways, it provides all the necessary ambiguity to build your own stuff around, but has enough meaty content there that you've got something to start with, so you're not like completely.
Sorry, I had to chuckle at this little commentary by Tom.
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's Tom and not Thom.
I don't know about that.
Well, I shouldn't assume, because you know what happens makes an ass out of you. Vahlok with no mask is more like Vahlok. That's it. That's it.
It's lost on me. Sorry.
Because it's a fail because he doesn't have the mask.
Oh, I see.
I don't know. I thought it was funny.
Good one, Tom.
I just didn't present it well, so sorry about that. Fuck you.
Hey, is that the first time you called me the F word on this podcast?
I think it might be.
I can't believe it's long overdue.
Oh, the
long
gates are
overdue.
open now.
Yeah, yeah. Everything has changed now. I feel the ground shift.
There's been a great disturbance.
Yes, a great disturbance. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we have for tonight regarding our lore rabbit hole. I think what we're going to do next is we are going to take a Draugr Logger break, and we're going to come back for our Aftercast show, and we'll have some discussion, answer questions, all of that good stuff. So as always, queue them up, put them in chat. If you have a question specifically for myself or Joe, make sure that you preface your question by just putting in the word question with a semicolon or something so we can separate it from the general chatter.
Preferably all caps, just because it stands out better then, but...
Yeah. He's got bad eyes, so you need to do that.
That's the guy with glasses.
My eyes are good. I got glasses. All right, so we will be back shortly, ladies and gentlemen. We'll see ya. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're back from our break. I hope you enjoyed
back to the program.
Draugr Logger break.
Speaking of Draugr Logger,
Yes, Joe. What about Draugr Logger?
I think there was a little bit of confusion about the whole Waja and the
Waja.
Draugr Logger.
Yeah.
So hopefully the interlude here helped maybe clear up a little bit of the Draugr Logger references. So,
Maybe.
Draugr Logger was actually that was born out of Roger, or was Roger born out of Draugr Logger? I don't remember which came first.
No, Draugr Logger came first, and then we did a series of interviews looking for a spokesman, and Roger was the one we hired. So yeah.
And we're really happy with his performance.
Yes,
Absolutely.
yes.
He hasn't missed a line yet. It's amazing.
No, we ask a lot of our spokespeople. I mean, it's more than just, being the face of Draugr Logger. They have to be able to, make these short films. They need acting chops, really.
Oh, absolutely.
And Roger does that. He does that. He's a little bit of a prima donna, but it's worth it, I think. Putting up with his idiosyncrasies is worth it because he never phones in a performance.
No, never.
Never.
I mean,
yeah.
the great thing is,
It's amazing.
He'll take bottle caps as payment. So.
Yes, he will, actually. Yeah, he does like
So
himself
it's,
the occasional Nord mead or ale. He's big into that.
Yeah.
The lager, he enjoys it.
So is the lager.
So yeah, it's always helpful when we can pay in lager. No, seriously, Draugr Logger is something that we created as a fictitious sponsor for our podcast, and it's just grown from there. Thus, you can get T-shirts and beer mugs that are Draugr Logger branded. And even though the virtually immersive tour is now over, Draugr Logger has kindly offered to continue to sponsor the podcast, which is great. I mean, it took a lot of pretty intense backroom negotiations to get it all ironed out. They want a few more mentions than we give them, Draugr Logger. So we're going to be working on that, Draugr Logger.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it was a lot of long nights with Draugr Logger, but it was definitely worth to keep Draugr Logger as
Yes.
You know, our official sponsor.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. Draugr Lager. Okay. So, the bullshit is over. Well,
I think it's just begun.
Yes, it's just begun because it is the Aftercast, ladies and gentlemen. Aftercast, sponsored by Draugr Lager. And we are going to answer some questions, have some discussion, that kind of thing. And I think we, in the last live stream, we started a new tradition that I think we're going to continue, and that is during the session, we will be asking our audience questions. So you don't get to ask all the questions. We get to ask questions too.
That's right.
Damn it.
Yeah.
And so, by God, we're going to think of some questions at some point. So get
Bad
ready.
or otherwise.
Get ready. And we're not even going to freaking capitalize them. We're just going to ask them.
We're gonna talk caps though.
We're going to talk in caps.
We'll ask them in caps.
Yes, that's what we do. Joe and I talk to each other in caps all the time. So
More often than you'd think.
oh yeah, for sure. So let's see. What do we got for questions?
Questions.
I see a question here. This seems like the first one that I've seen. Is there?
By Katie? Yeah,
Oh.
It was kind of by Katie. Is that the one you're looking at?
No, there's another one up here.
Oh, you're
After
right.
the ha 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 ha, I'm suffocating from laughter. Then we have a question.
It's so bad. It's gone to his fingers.
I know. By Gavin Gaines. Does that look right?
Hold on. I gotta.
My bad eyes, Joe. I have this on the largest monitor, but it is quite a ways from
It
me.
is a
and
ways. It is a
you know,
ways. It is.
So
Hold on. Yeah. Oh, there's another section of ha ha ha's.
oh, okay.
So that
Get through those.
Get
through those.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Make sure you read them all, though. All the ha-has, because we're sorry, Sausage. We don't know you very well yet, but we love you all the same.
That sounds kind of like a put down.
Sausage?
No. He's
What?
he's such a sorry sausage.
Sorry, I didn't mean it that way.
No, I know you didn't. Of course,
Okay.
you're right. That's yeah. No.
Okay. Question
Why don't you just start?
from Gavin Gaines. Question: are you going to make another two-sided character, and what kind of role play ideas are you thinking about? So by two-sided character, I'm thinking you're probably talking about the Fleet Cimmerian
I'm guessing.
dichotomy.
Yep, I would think so.
I don't have any specific plans to. That doesn't mean I won't. I don't really plan that stuff. I didn't set out when I created Fleet to have a character that was going to be sort of a multiple personality. I just kind of create a character background, and I create as much as I need to understand the character, to get it in the brain space of the character, and then I just play, and I see what the game presents, and I try to weave that stuff together.
Right.
What I have learned since doing Aranis Arcana is that I need to weave that stuff together with the least possible amount of effort. The more complicated I make the weaving, the more likely it is to turn into lots of drudgery and lots of lost time between episodes and production and stuff. So that's why with Etienne's story, I've kept it very simple. It's a series of interconnected quests that I'm hooking together using letters and correspondence, stuff like that. It would have to be a very special circumstance if I were to go beyond
Specifically.
that kind of thing. But the answer is no, I don't have any specific plan. That doesn't mean that I won't do it.
It could come.
So, yeah.
Open world. Question. How do you come up with the reason for going to a place when you have no in-game quest to go there? You are just going there for something your character needs for gameplay reasons.
Well, that is the crux of the whole thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
That is where the complexity of weaving stuff together comes in. If I were just playing Etienne for my own enjoyment, he'd probably be over level 60 by now. because I probably wouldn't care about that stuff as much.
Right.
I'd probably have the seed of an idea in my head that I'm playing off of as I'm doing my thing, but I'm not, sitting there talking to myself or documenting anything or writing any letters to help tie things together.
Right.
Those things are playing out in my head, and I'm saying, yep, a letter was written, a letter was received. But because I'm doing the passage for an audience, I have to articulate that in some way so the audience understands where my brain is going.
Right.
I think there's a lot of different ways you can tie things together, but one of my favorite things to think about is to try and think about what I understand of all the various side quests and figure out how they might snap together. This process foils me all the time. There are things that I think I understand about game mechanics that I discover I don't understand
Right.
when I get in to that point where I need to make the
completely
connection.
different as you thought they did.
Yes. I mean, Etienne's story has taken a very different turn than what I originally planned, simply because the game mechanics did not snap together or progress in the way that I thought they did. I thought I understood what outcomes triggered what additional outcomes. And my theories on that, when it got time to make those connections, was completely wrong. So I had to kind of change things up a little bit. But you can make those connections by just taking what you understand of these things and you fill in the gaps on your own. If I have a character that needs to get from point A to point B, I try to think of what are the locations between here and there. So if I were to just set out on a course, is it possible I could stumble into something along the way that might
Right.
lead me in a direction?
And
That kind of thing.
I think part of what would sway that path too
Mm-hmm.
is the type of character. Would they be one more prone to take the roads, or are they more
Mm-hmm.
of a as the crow flies? Are they not afraid to go cross country?
Mm-hmm.
Can they go cross country? I mean, sometimes you just have to go around stuff.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to go around shit. You can't go through everything at first level.
No amount of rock
Or
hopping
fifth.
can get you up every mountain.
That's correct.
Pretty close from what I've seen, but
Well,
not everyone.
yeah. To be fair, I'm also using a mod that increases my jump by
That's true.
150%. So
That is true.
that's the only way I can do some of that
150,
shit.
that's pretty good.
Yeah, another 50%.
That's
over and
one
above.
thing I liked about the Better Vampires mod, actually, is when you get to a certain level, it increases all those physical capabilities. So I had Inara, she was like jumping fire pits, like just on a lateral. Man, it was just crazy.
Olympic high jumper.
Yeah, crazy stuff.
Yeah,
But really
yeah.
fun.
I notice Skyrim characters don't use the proper form. They don't do the Western roll. They
They can do the Fallsbury flop, or
the Fallsbury flop is more like what they do. I'm sorry, we're making old track and field references to high jumping techniques. I'm sorry, we got a little bit track nerdy there for a minute. You may not know this about Joe, but
I'm sure they don't.
he was a pole vaulter
I was
in
a
high
pole
school,
vaulter.
and that is about, in my opinion, one of the scariest things that you could do. It requires a lot of guts or the capacity to just cast all reason aside
I
and
think the latter.
take a skinny little pole and just launch yourself, 16 or 17 feet up in the air
Oh, I
over a pole
wish.
or whatever.
I wish.
Yeah.
No.
How'd you do?
Oh God.
You remember?
I think. Oh God, what was it? Officially, I think I might have gotten over 12. Unofficially, I think I hit 13 because it was like my fourth try.
Yeah.
I don't remember, but it was nothing more than that. So
Yeah.
mediocre,
Uh-huh.
but it was still fun.
Yeah, and then he started breaking poles, and they made him into a statistician because they couldn't handle any more broken poles. Yeah, I remember that, though. I remember distinctly, like, running sprints on the other side of the field and hearing something that sounded like a shotgun blast in the middle of the infield, and Joe's laying in the mat with his pole in 3 pieces.
Yeah, I did have one going 3 pieces once.
Yeah.
This is before when helmets were required, and
Yeah, and the coach is like face palming, like, oh, God, this little dog, he's gonna burn through all my poles and
$200. $200.
It was brilliant. Okay, what else?
Wow, that was a sidetrack.
That was awesome.
We have
Katie?
Katie.
When will Etienne visit Angie again?
Never. They broke up.
Yeah, they just don't.
Oh, we haven't gotten that yet.
Oh. Damn it, Joe.
He'd have a riot, I think.
Yeah, I know. I have honestly, I have no idea. I think sometimes y'all get this idea that I've got this master plan. I really don't. Yeah, I'm probably at any given time, I'm probably anywhere between 5 and 6 episodes ahead of what you guys are watching. That's not the case currently because I took the entire weekend off. I didn't look at my computer. I didn't record a single thing.
A whole weekend?
I know. I sat on my ass and watched movies and videos and stuff like that and just took it easy.
You watched other people's stuff.
Yeah.
Nice.
So what you guys have seen to this point is all that I have created, and I'm maybe thinking 3 steps ahead. And
then 2 steps back because something didn't work.
Yes, and 2 steps back because some
and then
game
I get a
mechanic
phone
didn't
call.
work. Yeah, then I
Fuck Joe.
yeah, I call him up and say, "What am I gonna do, man? What am I gonna do? This doesn't work."
And then you talk long enough and have it figured out, and I said like 3 words.
Yeah, he doesn't say anything. I just hear the ice swirling in his drink as I'm talking. You know, sounds good. Sounds good.
I
Yep,
go with
yep,
that
yep.
one.
Oh yeah,
That's a winner.
you know. So, yeah, I don't really have a master plan, Katie. My plan has been, or my thought process has always been that he would go back to see her and he would do it on a recurring basis. But given the state of the story as it is right now, I have no idea. I mean, he's kind of really deep in the shit at the moment, and it's hard to imagine him breaking out of that fairly soon. I don't know.
Right.
Are we at this question here, robotic sausage question?
Correct.
Okay. I can't remember seeing any holidays mentioned in the TES, with the exception of King Olaf's burning. Do you recall any other instances of holidays in TES? There
No.
are lots of holidays.
Do you?
There are lots of holidays. Yes.
Wow.
Yes. If you actually go and research it, go out onto the
Well,
wiki.
there's a lot of holidays, but are any of them presented in game?
No, I
Besides
haven't.
King Olaf.
No, not presented in game, but there are a lot of
There,
holidays.
no, there are a ton of them.
Okay. So is the thrust of the question, are they presented in game specifically, or do they exist?
I read it as, do you know of any others that are in the game? But
Do you remember seeing
guess-
any holidays mentioned in the Elder Scrolls Skyrim? Okay. With the exception of King Olaf's burning. I don't.
no, I don't either, which is surprising
Mm-hmm.
when you think about how many different holidays they really do have.
Right. It kind of makes an interesting case for the Elder Scrolls Online because
Yeah.
they celebrate the Tamriel holidays regularly there, and they track those holidays along with our calendar, it seems like.
Okay. That would
So
make sense. Sure.
They have these kind of cool online events where you can get online at certain times and you can participate in different kinds of celebrations and holiday activities and stuff. It's pretty cool.
yeah,
I
that is
think.
cool. That
Yeah.
is neat.
I like that. That's one thing that's always been intriguing to me about Elder Scrolls Online is just that lore experience.
Right.
You know, but I've gone on and on about the things I have a beef with. But if I were to get involved, it would be
Because
all
of
about
that.
the lore.
Yeah, I agree.
Far. Yeah.
Get away from civilization and just explore
Yeah.
the game.
If you haven't checked it out, I discovered over the weekend that artist Caleb has started digging into Elder Scrolls Online. He's
Yeah,
done one episode.
I thought I saw something come through on a notification from him on that.
Yeah. He kind of goes through the intro part of it, and he does it in a really abbreviated way. I mean, I think he's got a total of he said it took him like 6 or 8 hours of playtime that he ran through this scenario where he was kind of establishing his character, going through the intro quest and all that stuff. And he just took chunks out of the recording and spliced them together and kind of overdubbed some some conversation about his experience. But I don't know how far he's planning to take it. But for me, it was
I
interesting.
haven't had a
to
chance
watch.
to look up on that
So,
on that particular one.
mm-hmm.
I like his stuff. I like his perspective, but I just haven't had a chance.
Yeah.
What else do we got?
Okay. That brings us down to
Mount Sec. How do you know when? How do you know when to move on to the next stage of the story? From what I've seen, there is a sweet spot between too soon and dragging the plot point. It's kind of fit and feel. It's
yeah.
yeah. I don't know. That's a tough question to articulate.
I guess are we talking about as a player playing a character, or are we talking about as me making a let's play? Or I guess I'm not sure Mount Sec what the question applies to, if it applies to your own gameplay or how we as players advance our story, or if it's specific to how I create a story when I'm doing my let's play stuff or my role play stuff. But I guess I can answer both questions. With my own characters, if I'm just playing by myself, I sometimes think of certain quests in the game as what I like to do with the quests is I like the end of the quest to be a transformative moment for the character, because the game doesn't really do that, right? The game has you, hey, look at, you're the harbinger.
Here's this thing.
Yeah, you're the harbinger. Now look, you can sleep in that bed now. It's allowed. Great, right?
Thanks.
But what we do as players, right, is we add gravitas to that event, right? So for us, we should be thinking anyway, about what does it really mean to be the harbinger, and how has this experience changed me? I've just dug into a barrow, the barrow, of Iskramor himself, his tomb or whatever, right? And I've spoken to the ghost of Kodlak, and I've burned witch heads, and I've saved him from being a werewolf and all of this stuff, right? Yeah, and I saw him killed, and I attended his funeral. All this heavy shit happens, right? And when all that heavy shit happens, you got to figure out how your character reinvents themselves afterwards. So what I like to do is, between those heavy aspects in a story, when things get heavy, when it's time for the character to be introspective and think about how has this changed me, I like to do something from the role play perspective that reflects that change, but then also do something in-game mechanically that allows me to visualize the change in a character. So if I'm playing with mods, specifically if I'm playing classic Skyrim, I will do something like use race menu to change the character's appearance. Suddenly,
some kind of physical.
Yeah, he becomes bigger. Right. He changes his hairstyle. He, uses war paint. He switches to a different kind of armor. He upgrades to the next, the character 2.0.
Yeah, I was going to say that armor and weapons is an easy one too to kind of give that physical look to the feel that you're trying to obtain.
Yeah. And that's why I think when you're planning out your playthrough, when you're thinking about it before you even do anything, in the same way that you'd think about your character's background, history, psychological profile, think about the quests that you want to pursue and the right order in which to do them. I think that's important.
And something can happen during one of those that will give you cause to change that direction. You could have a certain sequence of quests that your character wants to do, and something happens during one of them, and now all of a sudden it changes your whole perspective, your whole point of view, and now suddenly this character is going off in this different direction. So you can start looking at that progression, and this original one starts to fall off to the wayside,
right?
Which is part of the fun of letting the game be the game and letting it kind of help guide you in that way.
Absolutely. So yeah, I mean, we talk about that all the time. What Joe's talking about is letting the game breathe, right? Where you come up with a concept that lets you understand who your character is and how they think, but isn't so restrictive that the game can't steer you along. That to me is the exploration here. That's the fun part of it, is figure out what your character is like so that you understand them intimately, and then let the game experience wash over them and see where they go. And that's what's happening with Etienne, and that's why I don't know what Etienne is going to be doing 10 episodes from now. I have no idea, because I don't think that far ahead. I just take it as it comes and try to make the decisions inside the brain space of this character that we have created together, and make what I think are reasonable decisions based on whatever we've encountered already and the background we understand. So to me, that's the adventure.
Which all of those ideas and thoughts kind of bleed over into, a YouTube series.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. I'm going to do this pop-out chat here so I can
there you go.
see a little bit
so
better.
I can go down the next one here,
Yeah.
which is from Ted Talbert. What is the name of the traditional folk tune that Roger hums to himself? Do you know that one?
Yeah, that is Roger's Battle Hymn.
Is that what it's called?
That's what I call it.
Oh.
I made it up on the spot.
Duh. Gotcha.
It's because
Perfect.
the reason you can't understand it is because he's speaking in his native tongue, which is at Morin.
Where's his tongue?
At Morin.
Where's Morin?
It's out on the moors.
Okay.
It's at the moors. That's what.
Oh, that
that's
makes
the
sense.
origin of the word at Morin.
I got it.
On the moors.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
So what I do is I do subtle variations on the battle hymn, and the variations I do depend a little bit on his mood and how many of these I've had. So there's some where it was more of a chant.
Right.
But you'll notice, I mean, it's very much his hymn. I mean, he wrote it himself. He sings it about himself because there are times when you can hear his name actually included in the lyrics. So, yeah.
Cool.
He says, Uyunda, Hayuwa, Waja. So, yeah.
Oh, that's too funny.
He's had only himself to talk to for several thousand years.
Yeah.
So,
and the tongue's drying up.
who's to say he wouldn't write his own music? Make himself the star of his own sonnets and poems.
There you go. Who knows? He could have studied at the Bard's College.
It's possible.
Well, maybe not at the Bard's College, but
some college.
some kind of college.
Okay. Okay.
I think
I'm still getting caught up.
Let's see.
This is where I'm stuck here.
No.
There might be
The next one after that is we kind of covered this, I think, a little bit. Are you guys going to make another two-sided character like Fleet? And also, what kind of roleplay ideas can we look forward to in the future? Good question.
Well,
if we figure it out, you'll be the first to know.
Okay, so I think a lot about this. I think a lot about the format of Let's Plays on CouchWarrior TV. And as you guys know, I've experimented with a lot of different stuff. I've done full role play. I've done all commentary. I've done mixtures of both. I think even with the success of The Passage and as much fun as I'm having with it, I think I have yet to find the sweet spot. I think what I would really like is I would like to be able to do a role play where I could combine the aspects of commentary, of personal commentary that I have in The Passage with a fully voiced character like I have in Rune Runner.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And I don't speak in Etienne's voice in the
Well,
passage because I don't think I can.
That's the trick.
Yeah, I don't think I can create the sort of voice that he would have.
You know, I had to apply filters
Yeah.
because just out of the box,
Yeah.
I kind of had an idea or the thought on how it sounded. So once I started playing with the filters just on some of my own just natural commentary, I kind of struck that chord. I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of happenstance, and it just worked
Yeah.
out that way. But
Yeah, it's an experiment. I mean,
yeah, if you got a
you
certain
know?
sound in your head for that, and it's hard to articulate it.
Yeah, I mean, my voice is capable of doing certain things. There's certain kinds of voices that I can do well. And what I need to do is figure out for myself what sort of character that translates into. I think I like doing the voice work for Rune Runner. But I would love to combine that with sort of the rapidly evolving style of the passage. So, you know, I don't know.
Well, yeah, that spontaneous dialogue, excuse me, that you've got going that occurs naturally during the passage. Yeah, it's great. And now, if there's a way to augment it with an actual in-character voice, it'd be a lot of work.
Well, you know, I'm thinking about it. I mean, if I could do the passage and feel like I could voice the interactions with NPCs and stuff in the character's voice more effectively, to me, that's the kind of holy grail. That's kind of what I've discovered is I think the ideal style for me.
Sure.
I've tried both extremes. Rune Runner is an example of all role play 100% of the time. And the difficulty I have with that, and part of the reason that Rune Runner's on pause, there are many different reasons for it, but part of the reason is that it becomes, it's much more difficult to tell a character's story when you're in character voice all the time. What's helpful is if you can be in character voice, but then also have a narrator voice.
Right.
Right? I mean, to me, that's the ultimate. So I think I don't have any specific ideas for what I'm going to do next, but what I'm reaching for is that kind of experience, to do something that is
Combo platter.
Yep, a passage type experience, but with a voiced character. And for me to do that, it has to be a type of character and a voice I feel confident
Confident
doing.
and comfortable,
Yeah, I feel really confident doing, you know, Vander's voice. I feel really confident I guess I feel really confident doing Robard's voice as well, because I feel like I have that accent down pretty good.
Right.
You know, and Pertham's voice and Roger's voice and stuff. If I could find a voice like that and match it up with a unique character type and do a playthrough that was both, that would be ideal. I would love that.
Yeah.
So, but I don't have like these big booming pipes that are like something that you would equate with a large Nord, like a Nord warrior type, right?
Right, that big deep.
Yeah. The voices that I can do tend to be quirkier.
Plus, you got to have, well, yeah, on some of these races, the accents, to make it believable, it can be kind of tricky, at least for me.
Yeah. Yeah, true enough.
Without it sounding campy.
Yeah, exactly. What Joe is doing has a lot of production values associated with it. So you're doing a lot of voice modification and you're splicing dialogue directly in with your narration.
Right.
But you're using an assist from software to help you obtain what you want.
Yep.
There.
So yeah, I go through and I record all of the audio, just kind of as a narrator from a narration perspective, and then as I'm doing that, I will speak in a way that is from a character perspective, and then I go through and I listen to all those pieces and modify those bits that were intended as character dialogue. So yeah, it takes some time. This last one had a lot of that going on, but I'm happy with the end result. But it takes several hours
Yeah.
to do that.
Yeah, it turned out really great.
So-
The latest episode of Lost in Time is really awesome. If you haven't
Cool.
seen it, check it out.
Thanks.
There's a cinematic piece at the end that just blew my mind. I really liked
cool.
the writing was really solid too. I mean,
Yeah, that was fun to put together.
Joe's writing has really come a long way in the last year and a half. It's pretty remarkable, I think.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? I think before we take any more questions, it's time for us to lay a question on them so they can start to think about an answer.
Sure.
Any ideas, Joe?
You're such a bastard.
I thought it was a fucker.
You're a fucking bastard.
Fucking okay, perfect. Ah, yes. Let's see.
Well, this isn't going very well. What
Okay.
questions do we have?
I'm interested in this. Here's a good one. On this podcast, we've talked about probably 10, 20 different ways that you can prepare for playing a new character. And part of that is documentation of a character background, right? Background, bio, profile, whatever you want to call it. What do you do to basically formulate who your character is so that you understand enough about them going into the role play that you can make decisions in character? What do you do to solidify that? Tell us, what's your process? What's your technique? Do you write it down? Is it all in your head? Blah, blah, blah. I'm interested in how people do that because I've tried a lot of different things and I have a lot of different ideas about that, but I'm always interested in how other people do it.
Okay. So I'm going to piggyback off that just a little bit.
Okay.
So kind of curious to know, has anyone come across or has encountered any events after they've established their character that kind of surprised them insofar as the direction they thought their character was going versus where it actually went based on what had happened?
Good
All right.
question.
So while you're all thinking about that,
What's next? This is literally the furthest I can go up. Is
that's it. That's the next one.
Okay.
Alicia.
Alicia?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. Will you ever consider doing a Requiem Let's Play? Not even necessarily an in-character role play. It could be something where you discuss the overhaul as you go or whatever. I'm probably never going to do that. And that's just because I've kind of found a formula that works for me. I used to do Percus Maximus religiously, and I've switched over to Ordinator, and I'm all about keeping my setup as simple as possible. I don't want to do any patching. I don't want to do anything that's going to slow me down. And I'm interested in creating stories. I'm not interested in patching my game, and I'm not interested in, and I've heard a lot of people say really great things about Requiem, and I believe every word of it. I'm not ready to open that Pandora's box. And honestly, right now, I've been playing exclusively for a while in SE, and I kind of think it's going to stay that way for a while.
Oh, it looks great.
Yeah, it does, and I'm enjoying it. I'm honestly, I'm really enjoying just, kind of a simple low mod setup.
More back to basics, if you will.
Back to basics, and where I'm really just focused on advancing the story. And that's part of the reason why I've held off on the temptation to download the creation kit for SE and anything like that. All the letters that I make in game, I make in Photoshop and add in post-production because I don't want to do things that overcomplicate my setup and force me to think about things other than my story. And that's the reason why the passage moves so rapidly, because I'm not spending any time doing anything else but playing the game and thinking about my story, and that's it.
Yeah,
So
when you don't have to crack open creation kit, you're saving yourself Tons of time. The
Yeah.
end results can be fantastic, and they are.
Mm,
But yes, you spend a lot of time
yeah.
in there, which
So,
can be fun. But
yeah.
then, it's hard to balance that, gameplay, storytelling, etc. versus am I a modder
Mm-hmm.
now?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. For classic Skyrim, between Joe and I, we've probably created over 100 mods, and most of them are just for our own amusement.
Just little things, and
know.
sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't. And
Yeah, experiments, things like that. I love doing that stuff, but I kind of figured out that if I want my channel to be successful and I want to do the thing that I'm really passionate about, which is to create stories, I sort of have to pick a thing and stick with it for a while.
right.
And so that's why I've been going great guns on the passage, and it'll probably stay that way for a while.
Cool.
Yeah. Great question, though, Alicia. I've certainly heard a lot of great things about Requiem. So that brings us to Transcended Bell.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. You got this one?
Sure.
Did I read the last one? I think I did. Or
Yes, you did. I think.
Okay.
I need some help with a roleplay idea I have where it is a femme Breton who holds 3 souls, her own, the son of Nocturnal, and cousin to Sithis, and the daughter of Talos. So,
3 souls in one body?
sounds like it. Just trying to figure out, if you could maybe add a little more info to that as far as what kind of help are you looking for, or what's giving you the biggest problem in this particular scenario? Just bringing them all together, how to play that kind of that trifecta.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to think about. We're not talking about Nocturnal. We're talking about the son of, right?
The son of
We're
Nocturnal
not talking
and cousin
about
to Sithis, right?
Sithis. Well, who's the cousin of Sithis?
So-
That's a powerful ass cousin, is what that
Yeah,
is.
no kidding. So it has her own,
Mm-hmm.
the son of Nocturnal and cousin to Sithis, so that's the same entity. That's actually, yeah, no kidding.
Mm-hmm.
And the daughter of Talos.
Yeah. So, okay. So first of all, I'm going to take cousin of Sithis, and let's take that, and it exists out here on a completely different plane than the other two, in my opinion. Okay. And what is Sithis other than sort of the embodiment of chaos, right? At its root,
Core.
at its
Yeah.
core,
Yep.
right? So that leaves us with Nocturnal, where we're talking about shadows. We're talking about, well, kind of a patron to thieves, right? There's influences around luck and curses there, superstition, things like that, which is pretty cool. And then, of course, when we're talking about Talos, we're talking about battle prowess.
Right.
So, Joe, do you have any thoughts you want to before I start vomiting ideas, which I'm apt to do.
No,
I never stop puking ideas, people. That's what I do.
He's just idea sickness.
I know it's just ridiculous.
No, I'm not good at regurgitating. I need to chew on things for a little
Yeah.
bit. Unfortunately, that's just kind of how my mind works. I need a little time.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to spew ahead.
Okay. I sort of, first of all, at a mechanical level, I like the idea of a fighter thief, right? Which this sort of implies.
Well, and Talos kind of almost, to me, it imparts a bit of nobility as well. So it's this the warrior, but it's this noble warrior.
Well, yeah, I mean
Doesn't it?
kinda. Yeah, I guess so. I mean, it depends on who you believe when it comes to Talos. There's a lot of
Well,
there's a
I
lot
suppose
of
that's true.
lore out there that sort of paints Talos as a backstabber too, and it's somebody who's capable of double dealing and double crossing allies in order to advance his aims. But there's also this kind of sparkling image of the noble warrior as well.
Right. The truth is probably somewhere in between.
Yep, you're right.
As it usually is.
It's probably true.
So yeah, that fighter thief.
You know what it kind of says to me is it has sort of the potential for a Robin Hood-esque type of character.
Yeah, I was just kind of thinking of that
right?
Fighting for the people kind of thing.
Yeah, but then we've got the introduction of this chaos up here. So it says to me kind of a chaotic neutral or possibly transitioning to a chaotic good type of character
right.
who is maybe in it for themselves at the start, but then it turns into something more noble later.
I like the Robin Hood analogy because you have that bit of chaos, you have the little bit of nobility and fighter, and you have the kind of underhanded dealing, strike, and then you're gone before anyone knows.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible to approach the Thieves Guild quest. It's a vast quest with all kinds of stuff. There's a lot of opportunity to victimize people and to steal from people and stuff like that. But I think there's room in that quest line if you do it properly.
Give it a little more noble air.
To steer it in the direction you want it to go. Even if that's, stealing only the things that are part of the objective and giving a portion of the proceeds of everything you steal back to those people who really need it. Those kinds of things.
Right.
I mean, generally speaking, a lot of the people that you're stealing from in that are people who have something of value in the first place.
Sure.
I mean, it's not like you're going to Beggar's Row and you're stealing from those people, right? But maybe those are the people you're stealing for, or something
absolutely.
like that.
I mean, always give them coinage when you pass them by. Maybe you stick a part of your gold into an urn or a pot that's in the city somewhere, and just because mechanically you can't, unless you have the mod, but you can't give as much as you would like. So maybe you put a portion of it saying that this is the little pot that all the beggars know about.
Yeah. I'm wondering, in the vanilla game, do you have the ability to actually give a tithe, like at the Temple of Mara?
Yeah, I think so.
I know, there's a character like Boley. He'll tell you, don't forget to give at the temple,
I think so. I'm not sure if it's a set amount or...
Yeah, I don't know. But, either
That's an
way,
option.
even if you're playing vanilla and you don't want to use any mods that help you give gifts or things like that, you can always, stash it in a chest and deprive yourself of that symbolically as you're giving it to somebody. Right.
So...
Yeah. The vanilla game could have taken care of this very easily by allowing you to give money to beggars in any amount that you wish to.
Right. Just give me a slider.
Yeah, it's pretty much just one gold piece each time you interact with them.
And they're just thrilled to have it.
Oh, they love it. They do love it. Yeah. Got to get that.
So would
food.
Would that be enough of an encompass of the Sithis aspect?
I think so. I mean, you could definitely add some additional elements of chaos in there. My guess is what they might be driving at is an impetus for doing the, Assassins, Dark Brotherhood.
Right, that's kind of where I was thinking.
So, how can I be Harbinger, Guildmaster, and Listener all at once and have it be plausible?
Right.
But I would think about the progression, right? Maybe the person starts out doing the Thieves Guild quest line because they're all about themselves and they're all about personal enrichment, right? They get to a point in that quest line where they're the Guildmaster, or maybe they're not the Guildmaster yet. Maybe they've taken a step which has changed something in their outlook.
Right.
And they move on to maybe trying to be something a bit more noble and going down the warrior path, and we go down that kind of Harbinger path, right? And then, if you wanted to, you could even say that perhaps the Dark Brotherhood quest line is the ultimate expression of fighting for the people, where your character joins the Dark Brotherhood for the sole purpose of finding a way to eliminate the Emperor, who is grinding his heel into the necks of the people of Skyrim, right?
Yep.
And it's a sort of it's actually the chaotic good approach to solving that problem.
Yeah.
The ends justifies the means type
Right.
of mentality. I
Right,
don't know.
Right.
But that, something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
No, I think that works. Or could.
Cool. Next up, I think, is Tom Bombers. That's what I have.
All right. I gotta scroll down.
You're past it.
Did I?
Yeah. If you guys and Matt were in the Elder Scrolls universe, which race and class would you be?
Interesting.
Yeah, which I would be is different than what's my favorite.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, what would you be as you are now, or what would you want to be?
Let's do as you are now.
Ugh.
Given what you understand of yourself, where would you fit into that world? I think that's a more interesting question. Because it's easy to say what I'd want to be, but what am I, really?
I suppose I can't go with a beggar in the beggar's row. And
Sure you can. Yeah, sure you can. They're living it up down there. They certainly got it better than the beggars in Riften.
Well, that's true. At least they got something over their head.
Yeah. Have you ever run across where the beggar in Whiterun sleeps?
No, I don't. I don't think so.
He's got a crazy little lean-to built against one of the old crumbling walls on the outside of the
Funny.
the fortress or whatever.
Huh.
Yeah, I ran across it just accidentally, and I was like, "Oh, wow, that's where he sleeps." So I dropped him a loaf of bread and
Oh, there you
moved
go.
on.
Perfect. Yeah, no, I've never really paid enough attention to look at that.
I never really did either.
So, as you are now. Let's see. Where's that question?
I think for myself,
Would you be?
if somebody asks me what's your favorite character and character type, I always go with Bosmer Archer. Love the archers. Woo, but knowing who I am and what my limitations are, and that there's nobody in Skyrim that I've seen wearing spectacles, unless you're running a mod. I'd be a shitty archer. So, honestly, I'd probably end up being an artisan. I'd probably be someone like a blacksmith, or a silversmith,
Mm-hmm.
the kind of person who's doing up-close artistic kind of work,
Right.
where my eyesight is not a factor. So,
Yeah, that's good.
yeah, that's what I think of. How am I going to make a living?
Right.
So,
I don't know. I mean, as I am now, I don't know where I would.
you know what I think you'd do?
I don't. I'm gonna go kind of on a limb here and go in the Bard's College realm.
That's kind of what I was thinking. I was thinking something scholarly, something like a scribe or a writer or a scholar or a
Sure.
artist in that sense.
Yeah, I could do something on that.
Historian. I don't know. An
Maybe
orator.
Maybe not a historian.
An orator.
An orator. Ooh.
He just, he stands on the street corner philosophizing all day.
Yeah, no, I don't think I'd do that.
Okay.
As far as the what would you want to do? It probably completely opposite of what I am now.
Mm-hmm.
I always like kind of that big orc fighting,
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
giant, massive, just wade into battle kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's so not what I am.
A barbarian-style orc?
Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of like?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could see that.
Yep.
Judging what I know of
Past
you
experience.
and past experience, playing tabletop games with Joe.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's the master of the barbarian fighting style.
Like the barbarians.
Yeah, he does. So next question comes from Gavin Gaines, and it is, how many role-play ideas are you guys thinking about? I'm assuming that means at any given time. I'm usually thinking about anywhere between 5 and 10 at any given time. So even though I'm in the midst of a major Let's Play right now, I'm already giving a lot of thought to what I want to do next. And also giving a lot of thought to, you know, what happens to Rune Runner. And, oh, by the way, what's Roger going to do next? And how about, you know, especially in those cases where I have Let's Plays that include more than one character, like Robard and Vander. So I would say, you know, at any given time, I'm thinking about 2 or 3 new ideas as well as, you know, anywhere between 5 and 6 existing ones.
All right. I don't know, personally. I guess I haven't really thought about it, how many different things I might be. Really not that terrible many. I have a tendency to, once I get kind of locked into a certain direction, that's just kind of where I focus everything. Until either it comes to a natural end or something sparks my interest and I kind of lose interest. So in the case when I was running Enaroth, that was kind of the only thing I was doing, because that consumed every bit of my attention because I was having fun with it. Then, you know, her story came to a natural end point, which I was comfortable with, and that's when I started, you know, thinking about other concepts. And I started out with the Argonian, but possibly, and ended up with trying to spin my wheels on a Dwemer. So I'm a little more single-minded, but I don't have a channel that's as established as you've got going. I've only kind of been doing this piece of it for, you know, a short period of time. So, you know, I'm sure once I kind of everything starts clicking and rolling and going in a groove, then that might change.
Yep. It's hard, right? Because Skyrim is the kind of game that gives you all of this opportunity, but quite often we jump into it without an exit strategy. So we don't jump into it saying, oh, this playthrough is going to be over when this thing happens, right? And so we end up in this situation where more often than not, unless you're really disciplined, a character just fizzles out and stops without any sort of closure. And that's obviously what happened with Fleet, right? Is that story just fizzled out. And what I'm really determined to do with Etienne's story is I want his story to have an end. I'm determined that his story is going to have an end. It's not going to go forever, but when it does end, I want it to not fizzle out.
Right.
You know, I want it to have a somewhat satisfying close. And part of the problem that I face right now is, I think in my mind, initially when I started that story, I envisioned it being about somewhere between 80 and 100 episodes. But midway through, I got derailed completely. My story got derailed by game mechanics that didn't work like I thought they did, which is causing my story to go longer, and it's changed my exit strategy. So where the story ends right now is kind of nebulous, and I don't really like that. I don't like it to be nebulous, because I'm terribly afraid that what's going to happen is I'm going to lose interest, and I don't want it to fizzle out. I want it to actually
end,
close. So,
okay.
My turn, right?
Sure.
I see Papora Casca.
Yeah.
Question: who would win in a fight, Cimmerian or the Hound?
I would say both, unless you mean against each other.
Yeah.
In a long-range battle, the Hound. Up close, Cimmerian.
That's exactly what I would have said. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome.
Yep. Yep. That brings us to...
Oh, man.
Is that it?
No. Lady Nightbird, I believe.
Oh, yeah.
Starting to catch up to the bottom, so that's good.
Yeah, made it to the bottom. Whoa, check it out. Okay.
Here's something you don't brag about very often.
Okay. Question: have you guys ever considered writing a guide to character creation for the creative challenge? Not a guide. I would say yes and no. I'd never considered the idea of creating a written guide. I'd considered the idea of creating a series of short videos on character creation topics. And that's a thought that I had recently within the last few weeks. Like, maybe it'd be interesting to have...
It's a good idea.
You know, short bite-sized videos that are just about character creation ideas and how to implement them.
Maybe just like 15-minute blurbs kind of thing.
Yeah, that kind of thing. I don't see myself writing anything like that, but I could see myself making videos like that maybe.
If they translate into any kind of written thing, that'd be kind of really awesome. But it's actually a really big endeavor, but I like the idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, anything I did would probably be... It'd be more focused on role play stuff as opposed to getting into the mechanics of things.
Yeah, I think it'd have to be.
Yeah.
That way, I mean, to give it kind of that GURPS.
Right. About character development.
Right.
Stuff, right? Okay, that brings us to the bottom of the list right now anyway, which is... look at... Popper Casket. That was fast. Yeah. Well, Joe knows the character as well as I do. Etienne is definitely the superior ranged combatant, but Etienne and his daggers would have a very difficult time with Cimmerian. There's no way.
Cimmerian's, he's pretty much death incarnate up close.
Yeah, he's too brutal up close. There's no way. But that brings us to J, 15951. Okay, question. Again, because I either missed my question or my internet had a heart attack or you guys accidentally missed it, how do you decide which race best suits your story, or do you decide the race first? I think that depends for me. I got a nuanced answer for that, I guess.
No, that. I'm trying to think. A little bit of both. I guess. Just because, in some respects, because the mechanics force you to. A lot of times, I'll choose the race first. I don't really consider race as much for an overall story or an overall playthrough, as far as, I'm going to do this, so of course I'm going to play, a Breton. I personally have a tendency to gravitate towards, I think everyone does, towards certain races that they, just appeal to them more often than not. But in this particular story that I'm trying to put through on my channel, I specifically did choose a Dwemer race because I wanted to do the, figure out the challenges of doing something like that. So it probably doesn't really answer the question. The race doesn't really lead the story, but it definitely has an impact on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think so. I mean, for me with Etienne, race came after character concept.
Yeah, so with me, it's kind of come before for both of them. Even Inaroth was before because I wanted to play out that refugee piece to being a Dunmer in the Windhelm. So I guess now that I think back on it, I've always gone with race first and then kind of built the story around it. But I guess I've always kind of had the story in mind. And it just kind of worked out that way. So I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so we're being told we missed some questions. I'm trying to go back and find some here. I see one here by Mr. Brightside. I've never seen anybody try it before, but how realistically could you roleplay an Altmer Stormcloak? Maybe he hates the Thalmor, or he respects the Nords, Talos Shore, etc., as a Dragonborn. I will say, yes, you can do that. Yeah, and I have a very strong feeling that Etienne is fading that direction. So, and in that is exactly the kind of scenario I think you're talking about here. So there's a chance you might get to see that happen firsthand and get my take on it for what it's worth. Okay, here's another one. Gosh. What do you think of a character that starts out completely evil, but as he sees beggars and people that are having trouble, he slowly turns good because it reminds him of his childhood and his teens? I think it's a great concept.
Sure. It's really very close to what I did with Enorath. I mean, that wasn't a YouTube Let's Play by any means. That was just kind of my written story from way early on in the podcast. But that's really, I wanted this dark, really dark character, and that's, you know, I started her out at that, and I ended her being more kind of a monk studying under the tutelage of Parthenax to benefit all of, you know, Tamriel. So she made that transition over, gosh, probably at least a year. So yeah, it's actually can be. I mean, you can go from good to dark or dark to good if it can be a lot of fun either way. And that's where you can really let the game help you decide when you want to make those turning points. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about, Stu, with you know, the quests and, you know, making them a momentous occasion, or at least a pivotal one in some respect. They don't all have to be major plots or major pivots, but at least some sort of guide or direction bending kind of ploy to them.
God, dude, we missed a lot of questions here. Like my chat just it went down to the bottom, and a whole bunch of stuff got missed. Okay.
Sorry.
I feel like we need to come up with a better solution for Q&A, don't you? I feel like the chat is just, it doesn't work great for us. We spend all this time scrolling, and
it's moving too quick.
It's moved so fast. How do you decide which race best suits your story? I think we kind of answered that, didn't we?
What was it again?
How do you decide which race best suits your story?
Yeah, we kind of feebly
little bit of overlap there.
Plunged through that one.
Ted asked the question, how do you recognize success for your channel? What does success mean to you? Wow, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I guess I can't really chime in too terrible much just because mine is just starting. I guess for me in this particular thing, because it's not my job, it's not a full-time thing. I'm not making anything on it because I'm at a point where I can't really monetize anything effectively. So that's out the window. It's really about the people following you. I mean, that's really what it comes down to for me. A successful channel draws in viewers and individuals that are essentially just good people. You know, so that's success to me is creating this channel and these stories where others are enjoying them, will give you, you know, critiques, but not harsh criticisms that are unwarranted. I mean, this sucks isn't really a criticism. It's just kind of a put down. Whereas, you know, I thought this, and this, whereas you actually give you give someone. But I think it all comes down to who your subs are and what kind of people they are. You know, as far as that's kind of what I would deem as a successful channel.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I mean, even as CouchWarrior TV, you know, approaches the 8,500 mark for subscribers, you know, I mean, if I was measuring my success based on YouTube royalties, I would have offed myself a long time ago because it's nothing. I mean, YouTube channel royalties make just enough money for us to pay the hosting fees on our website. What I really look at on my channel is I look at subscribers. Not just the number of subscribers, but how engaged are the subscribers. So when I when I post a video of the passage and I've got, 200 views in the first hour, that's really heartwarming to me. That means that a lot of people are engaged with the story and that are enjoying the story.
Right.
And when people get online and they leave comments and they leave comments that are not just, hey, great job. They're comments about the story themselves that indicate to me that they're really fully engaged with the character and the narrative.
Thought-provoking.
To me, that says that's everything. And if I were to look at a specific statistic in the analytics that helped me understand whether or not my channel is successful or not, whether or not I feel it's successful, it's probably more than anything the number of minutes viewed. The idea that people are actually watching my videos. They're not just hitting them, they're watching them, and they're watching them all the way through. So even though I have a lot fewer subscribers than most channels, my royalties are lower than most channels. One of the things that CouchWarrior TV does really well is it keeps people fully engaged in the stories at a much higher percentage than most other YouTubers get.
Right.
So to me, what that means is that they're coming back and watching the stories, but they're watching the episodes in their entirety. And to me, that's what I really care about. Are people watching, and are they engaged enough to get involved and to leave smart comments and to tell their friends, hey, this is something you might enjoy? To me, that's the measure of success. It all revolves around subscriber numbers in some way or another, and their engagement. That's kind of what I look at. What else do we got here? There's a couple of other ones here. Questions, we asked that. I'm just going up again here. Okay, that one we answered. Now, Open World has a question, but it's a two-parter. And I got to scroll back down to it.
I need to pop this out.
We did not miss you, sir. I'm scrolling back down. I'm scrolling and scrolling. Look at all you people in there. Good God almighty.
Crazy.
How do you decide what race best suits your story? Okay, I made it past that. We talked about that.
Let's see.
Open World Addict, he had... Okay. Here's the two-part question.
All right.
Okay. One of the RP ideas that I had was to play a Talos Reborn kind of character. That was, in other words, Talos cried tears, and a Dragonborn avatar was born from that. And the only problem is that, part two of the question, that roleplay idea only remained an idea, and I haven't been able to take it any further. Any suggestions? Well, it's a solid premise, and there's a ton of stuff you could latch onto in the game to help feed the fire. But to me, it sounds more like a question about how do you take something from being just an idea to actually being a compelling play idea? How do you take something from being a concept to being something you can play?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on who you are and how you operate personally. I'll say, like, from my own experience, I had a concept that I wanted to have a character that was an oddity, but not an oddity in sort of the obvious, quirky, nutball kind of sense, an oddity in that it's something that you see rarely. And so I thought,
unique.
Wouldn't it be interesting if you had a high elf character who finds themselves starting to empathize and appreciate Nord culture? What would that be like? And at that point, I didn't document anything or anything like that. I just, spent a lot of my waking time as I was doing other tasks around the house or commuting back and forth to work, thinking about the concept and thinking, what would that look like? And that's kind of how Etienne was born. I don't write shit down, really. I have an idea in my head, and if it's something that is good, and if it's something that is going to be, if it's something that's going to have legs, I'll know it because it sticks with me. It'll be all I can think about for a long period of time, and I won't rest until I've ferreted out every detail that I think is relevant to the concept. So if I find myself laying in bed at night looking up lore on my phone to figure out what might fit the concept, I know the concept is worth keeping. It's worth pursuing. And in Etienne's case, I did probably 15 levels of play testing with that concept before I committed to actually making it into a Let's Play.
Right.
So that's what I do. But that's how my brain functions. I mean, some people's process might be very different, like write down a character background and write down an outline and think of, different things that might fit. You got to just figure out what works for you, I think.
That's generally the approach I'll end up taking for more meatier characters that grab my attention. I have a tendency to do a lot of just start documenting background histories, stories, and where things came from and why and that kind of thing. So where Stu does a lot of that in his head and then supplements it with some of the research, I actually find myself writing it down literally with pen and paper. So if something garners my attention to do that, then I know I've found something that at least hits part of an interest, so that I almost always end up reworking the character before I really get into the game with it. But it always starts out with that initial, drive to write down this concept.
Yeah, to each their own. You got to figure out what your process is and then be true to whatever that is. That's, it's taken me a long time, I think, to figure out what my own strengths and weaknesses are, because I've tried and failed at a lot of different things. And through that process, I've learned what works for me. And I know immediately the red flags will go up. If I see myself going down a road that I know doesn't play to my personality, if I find myself writing down an outline or an exhaustive document to try to shoehorn a concept into a quest, I know immediately that this is something that I need to abandon, because this is something that will be hot, for me for a little while, and then it's going to burn out quick and I'll lose interest. And, so I'm always thinking about what's sustainable. And I feel a responsibility to do that where my Let's Plays are concerned, because people get hooked on the story, and I feel responsible for that. I mean, I learned a lot from the failure that Aranis Arcana turned into at the end for me. I'm not happy with how that ended. And part of the reason why I don't bring Fleet back, I don't bring Cimmerian back, is in part because I wouldn't know where to pick it up again, but also because it's kind of a failure I'm not interested in reliving. I'm sort of interested in starting fresh. But so that's neither here nor there. So let's see, what do we got here? There's more.
I had one there from Alicia again.
Okay.
Will you do a CC podcast on how to end your character? As a matter of fact, we have.
Yeah.
And I believe, I was just trying to find it, I believe it's this one where so episode 33, if you go to the Character Crusade website, go to CC31, the podcast 31.
Was it this one?
And I thought it was. This is on the story cubes, but I thought we had sunsetting a character.
Yeah,
in
we
this
had
one.
and
I
one
could
that
be
was
wrong.
about sunsetting a character. It seems like one that was just you and I, right? Like Matt
Play
was
theory. No, this is it. Sunsetting a character with a plan.
31, episode 31.
Yeah, it's actually called Story Cubes and Character Creation. So,
But it's a topic we covered as part of that episode.
Yeah, a part of that episode has a play theory topic. Wow, that was a long episode.
Yeah, I know, right? We did a lot in that episode, I feel like.
So check that one out and see if that
Yep. Episode 31.
kind of gives you an idea.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If not, come back, ask some more questions.
That was a super good question. Okay. Okay, that's the one you just answered.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, question. As a role player, when it comes to how to play Skyrim, what game mechanic do you wish the game had?
Besides being able to give beggars whatever you want.
Yeah, we covered that, didn't we?
There's several, I suppose, if you really start thinking about game mechanics and.
Yeah, I mean,
No, of course I can't think of any besides that one. But
I think the thing that comes to mind for me over and over is just it's a limitation. It's a limitation of the system that we have right now that's difficult to overcome, and it's the idea that the actions of your character should influence the world in a more profound way. Right? And
right.
the classic thing that we always talk about on this podcast is, going to Sovngarde and defeating Alduin and then being a whelp
Right.
with the companions.
The only one I can think of where your actions do have an impact is when you get married. If you don't make it back to the temple in time, you'll come to the temple and all the guests will be leaving, and then you'll just be like the worst person that ever lived.
You missed your wedding?
I did. Oh, God, they just hate you.
Oh, dude.
Oh, you're a horrible person. Well, I went around a big, long roundabout way because I wanted to get a nice outfit.
Oh, shit.
Apparently, it took me too long.
Yeah, he wasted his time getting measured for that tux, and then it didn't pay off in the end.
No kidding. So, but
Yeah.
I think it's that kind of thing that you're talking about, but
Yeah.
a more global perspective or reach.
Yeah, I agree, but I mean, we've talked about this a lot. This concept of this continuum of game narrative. There's an episode of the podcast, I want to say it's number 9. It's called The Glory of Story, where we talk with Dave Cravens. Dave is he's a story designer in the video game industry, and he's worked on some very big, popular titles, AAA titles. And we had this discussion about the continuum of narrative and how the more control you give the player over creation and manipulation and customization of the character, the less control you have over the narrative. And when you have less control over the narrative, your story is not as rich. That's why you can play a game, for example, like The Last of Us, right? Where the narrative is unbelievably rich and, textured, and there's so many amazing things that happen. Sophisticated story, moving story, right? But you're on rails. You're having the experience they want you to have, and that level of control allows them to control the narrative and tell you this story. Mm-hmm. Whereas part of what makes Skyrim such a strong game is our ability to customize and create characters in our own vision, but that same strength is also the game's weakness, which means weaker story experiences, which means that's the reason that Character Crusade podcast started. We started with the mission statement that we were going to create a podcast that helped people in a game like Skyrim fill in the holes themselves, give them techniques, tools, ideas, and concepts they can use to fill in those narrative holes and make the overall story more fulfilling. Understanding that we're trying to either make up for or capitalize on the strengths and weaknesses of Skyrim as a game platform. So, yeah, I mean, it's, you know.
Or arrows that don't bounce off things.
God, would that be fucking nice?
Sorry, don't mean to rip the Band-Aid off that wound, but
it's too late.
Couldn't resist.
That, yeah, I mean, seriously, I mean,
I'm sorry.
It's
a sore point.
Oh man, yeah. There are many times when I call Joe on the phone and I vent, right? And like I call him on the phone and like 20 minutes later I'm like, "Oh man, I'm sorry. I haven't let you say a damn word because I've been fucking venting the whole time." And it's, you know, it's about anything, right? Not the arrow glitch. But yeah, that would be great to see that fixed. But ultimately, I mean, for me, when it comes to Skyrim, it's all about story. I'm into this game for the story. And, I mean, God bless it. I mean, the game certainly gives me the ability to create my own story, which is what this fucking thing's all about. Yeah. So, I mean, God bless it. But there are some definite times when I'm like, man, you know, in the context of the Civil War quest line, for example, you go through that whole quest line and within the confines of that quest, you are going up rank, and there are soldiers who are showing you respect as you go up rank. They call you by title, they salute you, they do all this stuff, right? But then again, once you get out of the confines of whatever that group is, whether it's Stormcloak or Legion, all that shit goes out the window. Yeah, and you're just another mook on the street, you know, without a clue. And, you know, maybe that's the way real life is supposed to be, too. I don't know. But it seems to me that, you know, unless you're doing a playthrough where you're going and you're endeavoring to keep the identity of your character a secret, the person responsible for killing Alduin is going to be a hero no matter what part of the province you go to, no matter what part of Tamriel you go to. And stuff like that is annoying to me.
Yeah, news of that would spread, I think, pretty quick.
Yeah. The arrow glitch is one of those things where that will just stop me from playing an archer again for a while. So after I'm done playing with Etienne, don't expect to see any archers for a while. That's so annoying.
And so this is for you, Katie, just because you're being a smartass. If you go to, and I don't know if this is going to totally answer your question here, but if you go to seriouseats.com/2013/01/a-physics-of-boiling-water-question.html, that should help you out.
And no, we will not paste the URL in. You're going to have to listen to this recording over and over again. Oh, God. Stu, I am an Etienne addict now. Thanks a lot. You are welcome. Okay. J15951 says.
Says what?
Dear Character Crusade, for my corruption Let's Play, which of these characters sounds like a better starting point, retired Redoran soldier with traditional Redoran beliefs, Tolfdir's grandson from Rorikstad with... That doesn't seem like a complete question. I don't... Sorry, Jay. I don't even see a question mark. Sorry. I just
can't be a question without a question mark.
God damn it. Okay. Stu curses all the time.
He does.
Brooklyn's totally wrong. Totally wrong.
He does.
Raw
He's
Stu.
just like a
Potty mouth.
sailor.
Yas. Wow. Stu dropping the swear bombs. I don't fucking swear. Give me a break. Okay. That is why this podcast
Has an explicit rating?
has an explicit rating and has since about episode 3. Because we want to just say what we want to say, okay? And honestly, I think you all should be flattered by that. And I'll tell you why. It's because when I call Joe and I vent to Joe, I swear a lot. I swear a lot. And by me swearing to you, it means that I have brought you into my confidence. You are inside the select group that I feel confident and comfortable venting to. And that's a compliment in my book. That shows a lot of trust.
Shows a lot of trust.
Come on.
But actually, it's seriously, actually, though, I think there is a little bit of truth to that. In that we're kind of all in the same place. We're at the site, like minds. So, we have that level of comfortableness.
Yeah. Exactly. Comfortableness.
Comfortableness.
That is a real word.
I'm not sure if it is, but I used it.
Yes.
So
Okay. The sausage has a question.
the sausage.
Okay. Question. I'm playing a vampire character who I played in Oblivion and in Skyrim. Her vampirism allowed her to live the 200 years in between the games. Have you ever played a character in 2 games? Joseph?
I got distracted. I'm going to pull out the Guardians of the Galaxy on this one. I wasn't listening.
Oh, son of a...
Which one is it? Top one?
Yeah.
I'm playing a vampire character who I played in... Oh, yeah, I did kind of bruise over this one.
Mm-hmm.
Between the games... Played a character in 2 games. Oh, I actually was going to try to play related characters from Morrowind and Skyrim, but I just haven't. I didn't get very far into the Morrowind aspect.
Yeah.
I was going to try to build up. Oh gosh, who was it now? It was it was like the mother of.
The Night Mother?
No, it wasn't the Night Mother. I think it might have. I think I was going with like the mother of
Invention.
Motherfucker!
Stop it!
Stop it! Sorry, I went blue. I'm so blue. I think it was Inaroth at first, but I totally don't even remember. So the short answer is no, but sorta.
That
No.
is a short answer.
No, I haven't actually spanned games.
Yeah.
I think it's super. That's a great idea. I love it. I think that could be a lot of fun and really have
It's
a
super.
enriching
Yes,
experience.
I would agree.
Depending on a vampire too, especially because you literally could, well, not literally, figuratively, you could do that.
Yeah. I have not, because I haven't played any of the other Elder Scrolls games. The Skyrim is my first foray into the Elder Scrolls universe, and I've been firmly planted there and haven't explored the other stuff. But I did play Mass Effect and carried my character over from the different Mass Effect games to complete the entire thingamajig. The entire story.
I think that counts.
That is one of those games where, it's kind of cool because you can play Mass Effect 1 and then you can carry your character over to the sequel and then to the third installment of the trilogy, and all the decisions that you made and all that stuff carry over, including the look of your character and all that stuff, so you can import a character
That would be
across
cool.
games.
That would be cool.
Yeah. That's cool. And that's one where I enjoyed it so much that I actually went back and played through again and carried a second character over through that
cool.
series because I wanted to see some of the alternate endings and try some different things. And I thought, what would happen if I did a character that was full renegade for the whole thing, where he was just an asshole through the whole thing, right? Where he was completely rogue, and had a very different experience. It was very cool. That is, I would say, related to the conversation that we had earlier about game narrative being on a continuum. I would say that Mass Effect is one of those games that nestles neatly between the two extremes, where you can do character customization, you can make choices in game. The choices are not as extensive as what you can make in a game like Skyrim, but they're certainly more extensive than what you can make in some other games where the narrative is much more controlled. So I like that one, and that is a game that allows you to make decisions for good or ill, and it really has an impact on your relationships in the world downstream. They give you just enough control to allow you to do that. And so that's why I always liked Mass Effect. I felt like it was a nice balance, I thought, of the two. And I fully expect that Mass Effect Andromeda is going to be, well, it's going to be the same way, but it's going to be superior in many ways as well in terms of the level of customization you're able to do and the narrative and all that stuff. So I'm very much looking forward to that.
I kind of like, you could do the concept, almost like the Assassin's Creed kind of concept of bringing characters forward from game to game as their own entity, but from like that former life kind of concept.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't necessarily be the same character, but it kind of would be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think, there's definitely room even in a game like Mass Effect, for example, for you to come into it with your own ideas about what the character background is. I think that's what allows those of us who have an overactive imagination to still feel a sense of purpose in a game like Fallout 4, where they say, you have to play this character or this character. I'm sorry. You can change their face all you want to, but their background story and their reason for being there is always going to be the same.
Right.
I think, first of all, I think that was a mistake that Bethesda made. If they do that same thing with the next version of Skyrim, they're screwed. They should never do that. And I hope they don't. But that said, if you have a good imagination, you can make Fallout 4 work in any way you want to. I mean, before I started modding, I would create a new character, go through the whole intro scene at Helgen, and I would play, to say level 10 or whatever, and then I'd be like, psychologically, I would just sit back and say, okay, boom, new saved game. Forget all that shit happened. Now it's time to create the story I want to make. And I would ignore being the Dragonborn, right? When I started modding and using stuff like alternate start, then that just gave me a leg up. I could do that, and play the kind of character I wanted to play from level 1, for example. But if your imagination is good enough, you can make it work however you need to make it work. I mean, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Okay.
I have no doubt we're missing a whole lot of stuff.
Ted's got a question here about favorite mods. This is one that comes up pretty frequently. The must-haves.
Oh. They kind of change, or they can. I'd almost put them in kind of categories. I guess my top must-haves are immersion mods. Then, weapon and armor that just give you more variety.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about anything specific. Like you, I used to do the Perkus, and still a great mod, but now I've migrated to Ordinator. Just it's got a little lighter weight to it, and I like that. I like those types of overhauls just because they give you more things, basically, that give you more options.
Right.
Things that maybe might enhance UI. There's several of them out there, just to make the game flow better as you play it.
Yep.
Interesting NPCs, to give a specific one, just because it adds more variety with so many different additional characters.
Yep. Let's put interesting NPCs on the list. That is not an option for people playing Special Edition yet.
Right.
But that aside, just talking mods in general, I agree with Joe. Interesting NPCs does a great mod to sort of flesh out the world with new characters and story concepts and things that overlap and weave in and out of the existing storylines. Awesome. I agree with Joe in that I feel like immersive weapons and armor are sort of must-haves just for the variety.
Right.
So you can get past some of the vanilla stuff. And the thing that I appreciate about those mods, especially the armor mod, is that there are items across all the different outfits that can be sort of mixed and matched, and you can come up with your own thing. A la the Hound, who is wearing pieces from 4 different sets, and it looks pretty good. So that definitely, I like that one. Immersion mods, I'm a true believer when it comes to Campfire now. I wasn't so sure when I went into it.
I agree.
But I love it.
Campfire. It's not always in my lineup. It's not currently, but in conjunction with that is Hunterborn.
Hunterborn, yes. Very much like real bows.
Yes.
A lot.
Yeah, I'm liking that too, even though, again,
Yep.
current character's not a bow person. But
Right. And I would absolutely love Knock to Tip if the guy could fix it so it actually worked properly. I think it was a really ambitious mod, but I've never been able to get it to play nice with anything else I was using.
Sure.
But I love the concepts he has in there about how he does arrow and bow crafting, and you can. What I like about his mod is it takes a modular approach to all the bows in the game. So
right.
you can acquire a simple longbow at low level, but you can get kits that will allow you to continue to upgrade that bow over time by getting different strings and, going through different sort of different kind of smithing techniques with the bow and stuff like that, which I love the concept. Unfortunately, I was never able to get it to work really well. It might be something I might revisit since I'm now using Ordinator.
Sure.
Ordinator is another one that
Yep.
that Ordinator makes my list every time.
Yep.
Love Ordinator.
So I just actually pulled up Organizer. So I'll just
Okay.
throw off a couple here that catch my eye. Excuse me. Campfire, of course, and Face Light
Yep.
is kind of nice.
Ooh,
PC head tracking for sure. Footprints for sure.
yep. Race menu.
Race menu.
Race menu is essential if you want to be able to have your character change over time in response to events in the game.
Right.
So
This
sure
one
that
here
one.
is a new one that I think I'll probably include in future plays is the coin replacer.
Really,
I like that it adds.
what does it do?
It
I don't
changes.
really get what it does.
Okay, so what it does is it changes the coins in the different depending on where you find them. So when you are in a Dwemer ruin, you find coins called Dumox, and they're made of a different material. And
That's
if you
cool.
melt them down, you actually get ebony ingots.
Wait a second.
Race menu is now in SE, really.
Woo! Is it really?
And
Huh.
the other thing the coin replacer does is it adds it changes the coins in the Nordic barrels, so they're ancient. I can't remember what they're termed. So it creates 3 different coins. So I don't know. It's just kind of a small bit that I like. Quality world map and
Yeah.
I install weathered road signs just because I like the vanilla ones are a little hard for me to read. That's another one I like. Let's see, what else do I got here that catches my eye? Improved bows. Blowing in the wind, which gives animation to the
Loincloths? They blow in the wind.
Yeah, sometimes they do.
The signs.
There's the Marilyn Monroe mod that helps cover that.
Ooh, yeah.
No, it moves the signs around when it's windy out.
I
so.
do like that one. It's amazing how much something like that makes a difference.
Yeah,
You know,
I agree.
it's
I
so
agree.
cool. I like that one too.
So I like those types
Yeah.
of mods
Cool.
personally. Like I say, the more immersive ones that just add little things.
Okay. Ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-ba. Okay. Jay asks, do you think I'm a different Jay or the same Jay you've been chatting with since Fleet? No, I think you're the same Jay. Let's see. Question. I'm stealing this from Tom. I hope that's okay. Want to start a new role play, trying to get ideas. Can you give suggestions? I don't know. I get too open a question, man. Have you used any custom follower mods? Do you have a favorite? I'm thinking of using Inigo. Well, I would never dissuade you from using Inigo. A lot of people have endorsed it. I've tried it myself. It's great. I don't use a lot of follower mods. I've tried Inigo. He was cool. I've used Hoth. He was cool. I've used Arissa. I liked her. I liked her story. That was pretty cool. The only other followers I've used have been sort of generic ones that weren't voiced or didn't have their own personality, and I gave them personality. So the examples of that would be like in Aranis Arcana, Nefei.
Oh, right.
Nefei was a right out of Nexus follower. Haldir was a right out of Nexus follower.
I'm trying to think.
About it.
I don't think I've ever used a follower mod.
No, I mean,
I've used mods that allow you to make in-game characters followers.
existing characters, make them into followers if they're not
Right.
a follower. Yeah.
Right. Done that, but I've never had a specific mod that I've
Right.
a character download.
Yep, there's some good followers in interesting NPCs. Rumarin, of course, I've used him with Vander
Yep.
as a roommate.
Yep. I've used Daggerlon.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. He's a good follower.
Yeah. So, you know,
Fun dialogue.
yep, they're out there. But honestly, it seems like, in the last couple of years when I've been using followers, I've been making my own, So, Robard is a follower of my own creation, and so is Stax and a lot of the other characters in the story. All of those characters, Julian, Bella, they're all characters I've created myself. So I'm making my own followers pretty much. Okay.
Oh, I wish Matt was here.
Ooh.
I'm skipping. I'm still way on the bottom, so I'm skipping down.
Okay.
Katie wants to know, what's the shortest amount of time Lydia has survived in your service? And I know Matt's had her killed off like super fast.
Me too, though.
Have you? I've always, she's always been pretty hardy for me.
Well, if you go back and look at my very first Let's Play, the Book of Sable, he takes on Lydia as a follower, and she literally dies in the road just past the Haunting Brew Meadery. She literally made it. She made it past
Wow.
that bandit camp on the other side of the bridge from the Haunting Brew Meadery,
Wow,
and
dang.
freaking, she just croaked right there.
Wow.
Dead.
That's really fast.
Yeah, and that was my fault because I think she is. Let's see. I want to say that she's not essential. She's protected.
No, she's not essential.
She's
otherwise.
protected. So enemies can't kill her, but it's possible for you to kill her if she's already down and you hit her with an errant spell or an arrow or something like that. She can die if you kill her.
Oops.
And she was fighting a bunch of bandits and got caught up in one of my spells, and boom, she was done. And we hadn't even made it a mile outside of town yet. So yeah, I'm guilty of that.
That's hilarious.
Okay. Question, Couch Warrior, would you consider doing a Let's Play where the character is actually you and you know what you are in-game? Reposting in case you missed it. LOL.
Yeah, we missed it.
I wouldn't do that. Just because I think that I would be boring. You know, and I'm being honest about that. I'm pretty regular guy.
Hey, he's still smithing.
Yeah. Damn. God, is he ever going to stop smithing? I'm an artisan, you son of a bitch.
He can't even make a nail right.
Yeah, it's too dangerous to go to Whiterun. I'm staying here. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Question. Which do you think would be more interesting to watch? A corruption story arc. Jay's working us on this question. Which do you think would be more interesting to watch? A corruption story arc with a retired Redoran, or traditional Redoran beliefs, or a young naive Nord with traditional Nord beliefs?
I think the retired Redoran would be more interesting just because I don't know a lot about it.
I agree, Jay. I agree with Joe. I think the retired Redoran is more intriguing. Just because, you know, you have the potential for all that breadth of background story you could create, right? That helps drive what the character is doing going forward. I think that sounds the most intriguing. I'd go with that one. Okay. Katie asks. Oh, you already asked that one.
Yeah.
She had the Lydia question.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it just caught my eye because it's hard to keep up.
Okay. What is she referring to here?
I think you playing yourself in a game.
Oh, really? Okay, is that what that is?
I mean, Vander's probably the closest.
Yeah, I mean, Vander is the closest reflection of me that I do play. But, you know, he's an exploration of ADHD is what he is. God, so many good questions, you peeps. What the hell? This is awesome. I swear to God, I feel like more interesting stuff comes out of the question and answer sessions. Okay, it was Grumpy Kitty that asked, about the
Kidda?
followers. I think we hit them all.
I
Don't
think
you?
so. I think so.
That was a veritable bonanza of questions. Yes. I'm going to play a character who talks like this, an elderly gentleman who's librarian, perhaps.
Where? Which library? Have I heard of it? And is it one I should know well?
Make my home in solitude in the Bard's College. Yes. I don't know. Oh, man. Katie. Question repeat. What would happen to Etienne if Garm died? Well, depends if he's hungry or not.
Oh,
No.
that's cold.
Isn't it? So cold. He would probably take it hard, I think. I think he would. Over the last few episodes, we've seen growth in that character, right? In terms of just...
Yeah, I feel that he's probably closer than he believes he is.
Yeah. And I recognize that, too. Like, I don't set out to have him act a certain way, but I did notice in the episodes since Garm has returned, he's been very, oh, you're cute little puppy. He's been very much that way, and he wasn't before. Before, he's like, yeah, whatever, you can follow me. We'll just do our thing, whatever. But now since Garm has returned, he's been, I think, a bit more affectionate towards the animal.
As far as the reaction or you know, how he would play out his reaction, I think would depend on how Garm would have died or been killed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he would take it hard. I think he would now. I think when Garm initially disappeared, we didn't see it phase Etienne too much. I think there's a big difference, however, between something disappearing from your life and something definitely being removed from it. So, you know, in the first half of the series, he probably wouldn't have been too fazed by it.
It would have been an unfortunate occurrence kind of thing, but
Yeah.
it would have moved on.
Yeah, but I think if it happens now,
It would hit
be
a little harder.
It would be pretty
Yeah.
tough
Yep.
for him, I think. I would hate to see what kind of rage it would inspire in him, depending on what happens.
Well, that's what I was getting at. I think depending
Yeah.
on how he acted out,
yeah,
depends on how such a thing happened.
yeah. He might go a little bit John Wick after after something like that.
Good reference.
So yeah,
I got another one coming out.
yeah. That interesting movie. I enjoyed that movie.
I did too.
Statement. Okay. I cracked up when I watched the Book of Sable because I'm watching from the oldest series to the newest. And I remember you seeing Lydia's body on the road. You look down, then, sweet Jesus, Lydia. I don't even remember that. I don't even remember
She
that.
must have stepped in your way.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's totally what happened. I mean, I'm fairly certain that
That's hilarious.
at the time of that playthrough, I didn't really understand the mechanic of the game. I didn't understand what the difference was between an essential and a protected character, and I'm pretty sure that I was in denial of the fact that it was me that killed her. And I'm fairly certain that I didn't address that in my role play. Okay. Question: am I the only one having glitches on the chest in the ragged flagon? God damn it. What chest? There's a whole bunch of them.
I'm gonna guess no. Out of all the people playing Skyrim, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that shit can be just so maddening. What
Yeah.
I'm not sure if I've ever encountered glitches in there, but like you said, Stu, there's a lot of different
Yeah.
chests in there.
Well, yeah, around the cistern, there's a chest every 10 feet. I'm trying to think of where there's a chest in the ragged flagon. I can't think of a place where there's a chest in the ragged flagon. Can you? Unless it's from a mod or something.
I'm not sure.
I don't know. Okay. Jay asks, what does it take to become a guest on the podcast? Let's see.
Speaking, I don't know.
I would
Or is it
say-
how have we chosen our guests?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, what we've been looking for historically anyway in a guest on the show is people who are able to contribute to, I would say, a discussion around, say, three different lines of focus. One being, can the person have a discussion with us about things like story structure, story ideas, concepts, and techniques, regardless of what the platform is? So examples of people like that would be people like Dave Cravens from episode 9, people like Alastair Stevens, who is a writer and came on and talked to us all about story structure and character development, right? I would say the other one is it somebody who can speak to us with experience on the specifics of Skyrim storytelling, right? The idea of character development, concept building around Skyrim itself. people that I would lump into this category would be definitely Jessa, right? Just because, well, she's played the game a lot, but her experience in YouTube lends itself a lot to her understanding how to take mods and integrate them into story, for example, and how to manipulate the existing storylines to make a story come to fruition, if you will.
Well, and her
right?
impromptu background is is a nice fold into that.
Yep. Another person I would lump into that sort of Skyrim storyteller character is a person like Corey Merchant, who has a real in-depth understanding of the lore and has a lot of things to say about that. That's why we had him on as a guest. And then the other people that I would say fit into that are people who kind of understand the Skyrim experience from the perspective of a modder or a person who's either making mods for the game or implementing mods for the game. And in that category, we have people like Dark Fox and Cal. So I think when we're looking at who do we have on the podcast, we're looking at who can bring something special to our audience that is going to benefit them in game. Is it story? Is it specific to Skyrim as a platform, or is it specific to Skyrim as a mod framework? And those are kind of if I were to categorize it, those would be sort of the three areas of attack I see us kind of going after. We really don't have any plans in 2017 in terms of interviews. We have a separate series that we're going to do in cooperation with Gamer Poets that we've talked about here a couple of times, I think. And that's going to be once a month interviewing modders. So we're definitely, in 2017, we're definitely going to get our fix when it comes to actually talking to people who are creating mods for Skyrim and getting inside information on what's being created, which I think will be pretty timely considering we have the release of SE and the community's just building in that area and all that stuff. But we don't have any plans laid out yet for who our other guests are going to be that kind of fill those other spaces. I'm certain we will be having Jessa on again. She's always an awesome guest, but we'll definitely be looking to have other folks on as well to fill kind of those other areas. And I'm anxious to get more people on the show that are just focused on storytelling.
Right.
Because so much of what they bring to the podcast is helpful to everybody. And I know that a lot of people who listen to Character Crusade podcasts are doing more than just playing Skyrim. They're writing fan fiction. In some cases, they're writing their own stories. They're creating artwork. They're doing creative things. And having those people on this podcast, I think, is good in many different ways. So,
is it Etienne or Etienne?
it is. There's no T at the end. Etienne Jorel.
Is my daughter joining again? If time allows,
That's a good question.
I would be happy to bring her on.
Is she still playing?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Yep. So yeah, it's always fun to get her perspective. She's got some interesting insights and thoughts. So yeah, I mean, with school and everything right now, during the weekdays, this is almost impossible unless she has a break and all that. So, but for sure, I would love to have her on.
Yeah, it'd be great to have her on again. And she I think has an interesting perspective on all of it, you know. And it would be cool to get a little update to see where she's at now versus where she was when you talked to her last.
Right.
I'm sure she's done a lot more now.
Yeah, you know, it's hard to say. Well, her little machine it huffs and puffs even harder than mine. So, yeah, she actually tried to download the SE, and she got it downloaded and installed, and went to launch it, and it launched, and she got the game sound, and her mouse was leaving mouse trails, and she just couldn't do it. It just couldn't. She was a little bummed out, but. She does a lot of things insofar as just different YouTube channels she likes to watch or listen to. I think her favorite one right now that she's been doing a lot of is called Critical Role. It's just a bunch of voice actors that get together and play D&D.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really actually kind of funny.
That's cool.
So that's definitely one she's been watching a lot of. So
yeah,
yeah, I would love to.
Well, that's actually interesting that Joe had mentioned that. We brought up pencil and paper games several times in this podcast, but in past podcasts as well.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things we are planning to do is start bringing in an element of tabletop role-playing games into the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
We're not exactly sure how we're going to do it yet, but we're in sort of an interesting little discussion with a local game shop here in the Twin Cities area, and we're hoping we can put together something with them that'll allow us to bring some tabletop games into the podcast that are oriented towards the kinds of things that our audience likes to do and that we like to do. So we're going to the experts to help us out, and we're really kind of looking forward to the opportunity to bring a new type of role play experience into the podcast that might help us learn some things we can apply to Skyrim, which would be very cool. Okay. So, S.W. Callahan is getting all technical on me about this spelling.
Because it's misspelled in the show notes, I think.
Apparently it's misspelled in the show notes, and I copy my show notes between all of them, and I'm certainly not going to go back and correct 97 episodes of that misspelling.
You know, that's your own fault.
So it is my fault. It is my fault. As much as I would like to blame it on Mr. Callahan, I can't. So
we can blame it on Matt.
Yes. I could pay $9 a month for a bulk YouTube video change tool, but I haven't gotten to that desperate yet. So I would say spell it however you want to spell it. If you want to spell it with a T, you go ahead and do that, and just say that, I don't know, that's the classic spelling of his name, or some shit like that. It doesn't matter. Spell it how you want to spell it. That's okay. When I'm writing responses back to people in the YouTube comments, I'm always spelling it without a T on the end. I don't have a T on the end.
And at the end of the day, I think we all understand.
Or just call him the Hound. We all seem to get that right.
Oh, that works.
That works too. Okay. Hashtag blame Matt. Perfect. Thanks a lot, Matt, you big jerk. Okay. Suggestion. I could edit all of them out for you. Katie, I value your time too much to have you do that.
You're better exercising your creativity and artistic abilities than you are.
We would much rather have
droning data entry,
making art than doing data entry because of my asinine mistakes. Yeah. I mean, Jay has got a point. I mean, he says I could just kind of retcon the thing and say that it's spelled with a T, but it doesn't matter because there's probably just as many places where I've spelled it without the T. So, maybe.
Oh, there you go. Ted says, say it's the French spelling.
That could be.
Etienne.
That could be. Okay. Yeah, maybe that is his name. And then maybe that's what his mother called him when he was being bad. But everyone else calls him, drops the T.
It could be the traditional Altmer spelling.
Yes. See, that's what I'm thinking. Like, maybe there's some kind of formal spelling. See, this is how it works, right? You make huge, horrendous mistakes, weird stuff happens, and you try to work it into the story, and that's how you end up with a crazy, jacked up narrative. Yeah. So, anyway.
Oh, funny.
I don't mind. Whatever you guys think is best, we'll go with that. Did you guys bring tabletop characters you've played to Skyrim? No, not specifically, but ideas I think we did.
Concepts and kind of amalgamation of different thoughts and ideas, sure.
Yeah.
I would say that an orc I played was probably pretty close to some of the barbarians I played in the D&D world.
Yep, I would say that's accurate. I would say that Fleet, that character, is kind of a derivative of a character I played in D&D who was, Well, I'm thinking of Chrysalis.
Yep, I was. Yep, that was
Dual
the first one I was
sword
thinking.
wielding, mask wearing.
Yep.
And this is a character that I was playing back in college.
Yeah, oddly, he had a split personality too.
He had a split personality. Yeah, I mean,
Dealt with a psycho god.
oh my gosh, yeah, it was bad.
Who was that? What
The
deity was that?
The deity? I can't recall.
It's a female.
Yeah, I don't recall.
I don't remember.
I
either
haven't
now.
played anything in the D&D space for such a long time now that I can't even remember who's included in the pantheons and all of that stuff. Or it could have been a deity of our own creation
Yeah,
too,
that's possible, too.
for that matter.
It's possible.
So, but yeah, that was a particularly demented character.
Just a little.
Just a little.
Yeah, that whole group was.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay. Shegarath. It wasn't Shegarath because it was from the D&D pantheon. Kalima. Was it? Was it Kali?
It was.
It was Kali.
Kali.
It
You're
was
right.
Kali. Holy
Yes.
crap. Holy crap. Katie called it.
Yeah. I don't know if she meant to, but she did.
She did. She did. It was Kali.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And the interesting thing about that character is he was a dual sword wielding monk fighter style,
Yep.
and he was also a were-tiger.
Oh, that's right. I
He
forgot
was-
about that.
He was a were-tiger,
That's right.
and he wore a sentient silver mask on his face.
Yeah.
that
It moved.
It moved and changed on his face. It was like he was a really creepy character, and he went downhill pretty fast. But he came from demented stock. He was as I had created that character, he was the son of another character I had created previously that was chaotic evil called Nemesis.
Mm-hmm.
And he gave birth to this kid whom he abandoned that turned into this monster named Chrysalis, who is a mess as well. But back then, I mean, I took a lot of pride in having messed up characters. I like characters with complicated personalities and plots and all that stuff. And I think most of the people in our game group were kind of the same way.
Mhm.
There was a lot of character depth going on
Yeah.
in that group.
Yeah, it was. It was a good group.
Yeah, we were role play wonks. We were not rules wonks. So if somebody wanted to do something, we found a way to kind of make it happen.
Yeah, or at least try.
Yeah, it led to some really great role play interaction, but it also led to some pretty severe nightmares for whoever was DMing at the time. So, yeah, it could turn into. I mean, we could have day-long game sessions that where we never left the tavern. And it was all about whatever crap was going on in that tavern and in the role play kind of stuff. So it was a different game experience, but it was, I think, part of what formed what we're doing now. It certainly informs the way we make our characters now.
Yeah, looking back on it, I mean, it sure was it was a progenitus of
It was.
of all this.
Okay, let's see where. Okay, I was just looking to see where Katie was gloating. There she's right there. Oh, that's good. Yeah, she called it.
Yeah, you got it. Well done.
So you guys probably notice. I mean, I have a fairly liberal amount of terms in my blacklist. So I mean, I apologize. There's probably a lot of posts in this chat stream that aren't showing up because there's certain things in what you're putting in that are blocked by my blacklist. But I've done that for good reason, and I figure over time you'll all get attuned to what's going on and what causes that to kick off and what doesn't. Okay. So let's see. We've gotten through so much cool stuff here. The fact is, folks, we're probably going to have to call it pretty soon here because
Yeah, it's almost Well, 10 o'clock our time.
Yeah, you know from looking at us that we need our beauty rest.
Even though it doesn't really help much.
No, it doesn't. Not anymore. It used to. Doesn't anymore. But, old habits die hard.
Just old.
Yeah, I still feel beautiful.
You're a beautiful person, Stu.
Right. Okay, suggestion. I've seen it floating about. But for Q&A, you could start a Twitter hashtag and use Twitter. Sure.
Yeah.
Not a bad idea. Yeah. We'll have to think about that. The only reluctance I have there is I certainly don't want to force people to make Twitter accounts in order to engage in question and answer. It's possible we could come up with another solution using some of the tools we have available through our website too. We'll have to think about that. I mean, this is okay for now, but 2017 is a year of change in progress, so I got to believe that we could come up with something a little bit better.
Some streamlines, some improvements, or...
Yeah, I think so.
What have you?
Well, everybody, I think we're going to call it. I just want to thank you all for all of your support over the last year. I think all three of us have been gratified / mystified by how well the year has gone.
Mm-hmm.
And the capacity we have found to do cool things thanks to your support and thanks to your donations and, all of that stuff. And, we're looking forward to a really great year going forward. We got lots of plans, and I think we've spent the last year and a half building a really strong and interesting community, not only of listeners and viewers to the podcast, but also of, other YouTubers and gamers and stuff. And so we think about, partnerships with Jessa and Dark Fox and Gamer Poets and Dirty Weasel and all of these people. And so we're looking forward in 2017 to finding new, interesting, and fun ways to leverage all of the great brain power that we've got going on to make some cool and fun things. So thank you again for all of your support. And we are going to call it a night.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, you all have a good night, and we love you very much.
Later.
Later.